Welcome to the San Jose Hockey Now podcast. I'm Sheng, editor-in-chief of San Jose Hockey Now. You can also find my work on NBC Sharks on Twitter, Sheng_Peng, and Blue Sky, Sheng Peng. You'll notice once again, I am writing solo. Keegan is still on vacation. But we have an exciting guest this week, so it's just not me talking for an hour and a half. We have Steve Peters on. Steve Peters, he used to be a video coach for the Arizona/Phoenix Coyotes for actually 25 years, I think, or 24 years. So there for a long, long time. You might be familiar with Steve more now. He was helping out with ESPN's broadcast this year, and on his own Twitter, S. Peters Hockey, you saw probably a lot of great breakdowns that Steve was doing of there's all kinds of things that are happening in the playoffs, tactically, all that sort of thing, right? Steve is really the man at that kind of stuff. So really, really excited to have Steve on to talk about the Sharks' moves. Obviously, they made a couple big moves last week or this past weekend Friday. They traded for Ryan Reaves. They signed Jeff Skinner. And so Steve and I kind of put together our Sharks lineup, which I kind of know we did last week, but we did it last week without Skinner, without Reaves. And also, too, you didn't have someone as smart as Steve Peters helping me out on it last week. And so really, really excited for that segment. Great interview. We talked about that and other things under the Sharks' sun, tactical stuff too, which Steve is an expert at. So really, really excited to jump into that. But before we do that, let's have a word from our sponsor, Bring Hockey Back, bringhockeyback.net. Awesome custom hockey jerseys. If you need that for your adult league team, for any kind of occasion, bringhockeyback.net. Obviously, we've been talking about their t-shirts. I believe you can still get it here. So here is Director of Vibes, right? Oh, there you go. There's the Vibes. They also got a Macklin Celebrini Mac Attack t-shirt on there that I believe you can still purchase. And coupon code 15% off, San Jose Hockey Now for 15% off. Coupon code San Jose Hockey Now. So go to Bring Hockey Back, bringhockeyback.net for custom hockey jerseys, the coolest t-shirts. Use the coupon code to save 15% off. San Jose Hockey Now. But before we get to Steve, let's run a quick little rundown of the events of the Sharks this past week. I think we last recorded on Monday. And when we recorded on Monday, weren't sure if the Sharks were going to do too much more in terms of free agency or whatnot. But clearly they did have a couple moves up their sleeves. I know one that is not very popular, the Ryan Reaves trade. So let's start with that first. We'll talk about the Ryan Reaves trade a little bit. We'll talk about the Jeff Skinner signing a little bit. We'll talk about Mike Grier's grand plan, which I wrote in an article yesterday, talked about that a little bit. And finally, then we'll have Steve on. And Steve, that's a great interview. We talked with him for over an hour there. So that's going to be the bulk of the show. So you won't get too much of me just talking to you right here. So Keegan, please come back. But anyway, so let's start first with Ryan Reaves. The Ryan Reaves trade for Henry Thrun, or Henry Thrun got sent out. So last week, we were already talking about the Sharks had a glut of defensemen, and one of them was going to go out the door. Last week, I sort of picked Thrun as the guy that wasn't sure what his role was on the Sharks. The Sharks have a clear kind of top 6 best defensemen right now. I think that's pretty much most people would agree on that. Steve agrees with it too. We talked with Steve Peters in a little bit here. But the top 6 of Orlov, Klingberg, mix and match where they are in terms of left, right side, and Orlov and Leddy have a lot of experience on the right side, but Ferraro, Mukhamadullin, Leddy, and Mukhamadullin. Wait, I'm forgetting something, aren't I? Lodgren. Sorry. So anyway, so that's 6 right there. And then that leaves for your number 7 and 8 defensemen, 2 guys that have a lot of NHL experience in Thrun and Desharnais, but maybe not quite enough there to crack this top 6 that we have right now, or this top 6 defensemen that we have right now. And so there is kind of that, there's an extra guy there between Thrun and Desharnais. You have Sam Dickinson obviously pushing to start off the season with the Sharks and stay the season with the Sharks. And so clearing the logjam there a little bit. Thrun seemed like kind of the logical pick because he's cheaper than Desharnais. I think that's a big part of it. Desharnais is making $2 million. Also, Desharnais is a little more valuable. He has the value of the right side thing, so the Sharks may want to keep him for that reason. And I think too with Desharnais that he's a specific kind of defenseman. You kind of know who he is. So the Sharks actually now don't have a lot of guys like him on their sort of in this defensive group now. You have more combo guys like Orlov, like Letty, like Mukmadulin, hopefully one day. You have more puck moving types in Klingberg and Lodegren. And you have the guy that is a little like Desharnais, the more defensive type like Ferraro, which is different than Sharks defenses in the past where the Sharks didn't have a lot of puck moving there. And so you had Ruda, you had Ty Emberson, you had Mario Ferraro, and a couple other guys that I'm forgetting right here, but I've forgot out of memory. I'm repressed. But anyway, it was definitely not as strong of a puck moving group. And Mike Grier has said it many times this offseason. He's shown it with his moves that there was a concentration on not just pure defending, which maybe those are the guys that they kind of picked up before, Ruda, etc., and more on, defensive aspect, yes, but more on being able to get the puck and move it to the forwards. So defend well enough, hang on there, and then get the pucks up to the forwards. Because how many times over the last couple of years have we seen the Sharks defend kind of the first wave okay, they hang on there. They might stop the Oilers kind of the first attack, but then they can't get the puck out. And then it becomes wave after wave, and then shots after shot, and then goal, right? So definitely a different goal, a different kind of focus for Mike Grier on the defense this offseason than in the past, I think, a bit, which I think is a good change. Will prevent things like the Mero Ferraro, Jan Ruda pairing that we saw last year, unfortunately. So actually, that reminds me too of a more defense first guy like a Cody Ceci, obviously, who the Sharks brought in last year too. So definitely different focus from Mike. Maybe as the forward group gets better, it's a little more thought from him to get the puck to this forward group, to this young forward group too, that needs the puck to attack. But anyway, so Henry wasn't the most logical fit in these kind of ways that not exactly sure. I'm not sure if Henry knows yet what kind of defenseman he is going to be as an everyday NHLer. He is a kind of guy that is okay to decent at a lot of things, but he's not strong in a particular area that I would say. Like Desharnais is big, he's a PKer, he clears the net. So very just kind of clear Desharnais is weaker in other areas than Henry Thrun, but there is sort of he has a clear role in the NHL. And so Henry is still trying to find that. But also, too, Henry's advantage, though, I mentioned his cap hit is lower. Also, too, that he is just 24. So if you're the Toronto Maple Leafs, he represents, well, maybe we can get a little more out of Henry Thrun. He may not be a middle pairing guy in the NHL on a playoff team, but maybe we can turn him into a very solid bottom pairing defenseman. So he hasn't done that yet with the Sharks. He played a lot with the Sharks, but the Sharks were a very, very weak team, especially defensively. Not a lot of depth there. But now with a lot more depth, Henry didn't really quite have an exact place on the Sharks, especially if you are really dead set on trying to integrate Sam Dickinson in there, which the Sharks appear to be trying to do. So I think that part of it, I think most fans are okay with in terms of, okay, that Henry, it didn't turn out. Obviously, the Sharks, when they traded for him from the Ducks a couple years ago, they were hoping that he was going to be a guy that would develop into kind of a clear-cut middle pairing guy, a guy that would develop into, I don't know, a Mario Ferraro kind type that is a mainstay in the lineup at least. But that didn't happen. Not entirely all on Henry. To grow up, develop as a Sharks defenseman was arguably the hardest job in the NHL for the last couple of years. I mean, I think I've talked about this, talking about Jan Ruda and Mario Ferraro and trying to kind of defend these guys. Cody Ceci too, trying to defend these guys a little bit, that to be a defensive defenseman on the Sharks was such a hard job over the last 2 years. Same kind of way to have to develop with the Sharks and to be kind of exposed to the waves of attack coming at you because you don't have just a good team around you. Well, that is not an easy way to grow and develop as a player. And I give Henry a lot of credit that mentally he stayed strong. He did get better over the last couple of years. Just again, not quite enough though. So don't put that all on him. Maybe in a new environment, a much better team, that he will get better and he will become more of a mainstay guy instead of a number 7. We can scratch him, we can waive him kind of guy, which is honestly where he is at right now in terms of, I think, the view around the league about him. That was part of it too, that speaking with NHL scouts, and we did a whole podcast on that last week in terms of the value of defensemen, the value of the Sharks defensemen, besides their new, obviously the guys who are going to be in the lineup like Orlov and Klingberg, that Thrun was pegged at roughly a 5th round value, which is not that high. Tells me too that if the Sharks had gone into cap, which it could have done with these 8 defensemen and with Sam Dickinson as your 9th, and see what Sam does in training camp before you make a move on a Henry Thrun or a Desharnais, that you could have done that, but there might have been no offers for Thrun at that point because they're just, I think a lot of picking up on Reaves is just picking up what's available and what the Sharks need or want out there in terms of skills that they don't have that Reaves can provide, which I'll get to. I know that, again, a wildly unpopular move with not all Sharks fans, but with a lot of Sharks fans, a lot of more analytically inclined Sharks fans, whatnot. I hear you. I get that. So we'll get to why Ryan Reaves in a second. But anyway, though, that you could have. I'm not convinced that if the Sharks had just done that and held Thrun out or held on to Thrun through training camp to see, which you could have argued for, because then that sort of that gives you that security blanket in case Sam Dickinson isn't quite ready. Gives you the option to start the season with 8 Angel defensemen. Obviously, there's injuries and that kind of thing that happens too, which could have vaulted Henry Thrun higher up on the depth chart. And so you could have held them on until camp. But then, though, at that point, you hold them on to camp. You try to send them through waivers when everybody's trying to send talent through waivers. I don't know if Henry sticks out enough that for sure he would have been claimed. So here's, I think, part of it is the Sharks trying to get something for him that they want. And so that leads to, okay, why do they want Ryan Reaves? And Ryan Reaves, we know his reputation, tough, one of the toughest guys in the league. Maybe arguably the last guy in the league you want to fight this side of maybe Matt Rempe these days or Tom Wilson or something like that, right? But so you bring that element in, whether you value that or not, but the Sharks do value that. Now, let's talk about the player, though, Ryan Reaves. And I've spoken to a few scouts about it. Steve Peters talks about it a little bit too, that as much criticism as Ryan Reaves has received throughout his career, for most of his career, he has been a very effective forechecking presence, a scary forechecking presence. To see that guy with his speed, his strength coming at you, I would say that he has terrorized defensemen. Not every defenseman in the league. I'm not saying that. If he was doing that, then he'd be on your second or third line. But he has legitimately terrorized defensemen in this league over his career, and not just with his fisticuffs, with just his ferocious forechecking presence. So he had that ability for really most of his career, but he's now 38. And everything that I understand about him is that maybe there is a half step lost. There's something lost there. So he's not the forechecker that he was. If he was the player that he was, he wouldn't be on the Sharks. He'd still be on playoff teams like he has been over the last, really, most of his career. He came from Toronto. The Toronto had signed him to a 3-year contract. He was in the playoffs with them. He came from Minnesota, I think previously, made the playoffs with them. Obviously, it was with Vegas, and was with Vegas throughout, everyone remembers, the San Jose Vegas rivalry. And for Vegas, deep playoff runs, Ryan Reaves was a element of those teams, a different element. He brought a different element to the team, but a useful hockey playing element. So let's make that very clear. And also Pittsburgh, St. Louis before, good teams before too, but brought a useful hockey playing element 100% for sure. Now, I know a lot of fans don't agree with that. They look at the charts, whatnot. Okay, we can debate that some other day. But in my mind, And in Mike Grier's mind, based on what he said, that there was a very, very useful hockey playing element there with Ryan Reaves for most of his career. Now, I do think again that he has lost something. So I'm not sure how much he's going to help on that end for the Sharks, the forechecking part. Maybe he can turn back the clock a little bit. Maybe he just needs some kind of more regular opportunity. I'm not really sure, but and he's not that far away from being an effective presence in that way too. So to give him that too, but he's also 38, so not sure of that, to be honest. So I'm excited or interested to see what he's going to bring at camp. But the other part too of why you make this trade for the Sharks is, if I can put it this way. So the way that I saw it, and I just wrote a story about it, which actually this whole next 20 minutes will be kind of talking about some of the same themes of the article that I put out, why Reeves and Skinner, Grier's grand plan. So on San Jose Hockey Now right now. But anyway, the other thing that I would say though is that, and just to be clear, and this is no disrespect meant to Henry Thrun, but talking with scouts around the league about his value, that this is a trade of two low value, to be frank, assets being swapped for one another. That includes Ryan Reaves too. Ryan Reaves was waived last year around the trade deadline. No one picked him up. And this wasn't the case before. Henry Thrun as a prospect had a little bit more shine, got a third round pick from the Sharks. Maybe at that point, that was probably the peak of his value, or some hope that with his hard work, his intelligence, that would blossom into a higher end defenseman than he became. And with Ryan Reeves was a pretty valuable asset back in the day too. If you look at some of the trades he was involved in, that he got back legitimate pieces. So in both cases, these are devalued assets that were swapped for one another. And the way I see it is, of course, a lot of people will say, well, why not keep the 24-year-old defenseman, or why not hold the 24-year-old defenseman for another, let's say, another forward of about the same age that is sort of a prospect that hasn't quite established himself yet, but still has a little bit of runway, a little bit of hope that he can find his game. Right. That's actually why I suggested last week that I thought that a trade of Henry Thrun for a forward about the same age, out of options, kind of a brighter prospect before, that might be a logical trade for the Sharks to pursue. And that would have been a logical path for the Sharks to pursue if that was out there. I don't know if that was out there or not, but why does Ryan Reeves make sense here? And the way I would put it is, so let's say you have two kitchen utensils here. And I've been doing a lot of, I mentioned this a couple weeks ago, I've been doing a lot of thrifting recently. So maybe this is why this came up to mind when I thought about how to discuss this trade. But okay, so imagine you got two kitchen utensils. Now, Henry Thrun is a spare fork. Useful, of course, forks are always useful, but there's a lot of forks out there. No offense, there's a lot of forks out there, right? And so if you keep a Henry Thrun on your team, on your roster, well, you have a lot of other defensemen that are kind of in the same, maybe different skill set, of course, but still that just doesn't quite stand out though in any particular way. Not even like I mentioned, like a Day Harney or whatever, right? And so useful, but not special, maybe in this case, right? So in this case, what is Ryan Reaves? Ryan Reaves is also kitchen utensil, but in this case, he's a spatula. So if your kitchen doesn't have a spatula, which the Sharks do not right now in their kitchen, well, then this trade makes a little more sense, that they're again neither is the most valuable of kitchen utensils, but Reeves has kind of a different kind of element that Thrun does not have. And so that element, Mike I think explained it very clearly, believe him or not, or buy into it or not. I think is a better way to put into. But I know a lot of you guys fans you don't, which I get. But Mike Grier came from, obviously, he's an old school hockey player. Back in his playing day, he was a throwback winger. He played in a league that 100% believed in the intangible value of an enforcer. And Greer said it well. He said that, well, maybe Ryan Reaves in the locker room, he can make everybody feel a little bit taller, knowing that he's around to kind of clean up on stuff, even if he doesn't play every game, but just that he's around. And if you buy into that at all, and if you say just maybe, and this is where I'm at with the trade, by the way, that I recognize that Henry Thrun is a better hockey player than Ryan Reaves, especially at this point in Reeves' career. I get that. But if you believe that there's a chance that Ryan Reaves around can make a Will Smith, a Macklin Celebrini, and William Eklund feel a little more protected, feel a little bit more taller going into some situations, then there is a definite value in that, right? So that's number one. The second part of it too is that Reeves brings something to the locker room that the Sharks do not have. And that's, well, they have Emero Ferraro, but that's just one guy. And it's just a volume, an energy, a positivity, a swagger. And definitely more so than, well, Henry was a great locker room guy. No one would say a thing about him, cross about him, but he wasn't bringing that kind of energy to the room. And so the Sharks, Mike Grier thought that they needed another guy like that. He called the room, Mike Grier called the room last year a little bit quiet. And a little bit quiet, well, besides the parentheses, is besides Mario Ferraro. And so now you have a guy that can match Mario's volume, his positivity, his energy. And so that is also again, we're talking about the different elements that these kitchen utensils bring. And so this is a different element that Ryan Reaves definitely has, that he's brought to every locker room that he's been in, and a lot of winning locker rooms too. So I think in total, yeah, so I can see this trade. It's not. I think it is possible that I'm not as sure of it as Mike Grier is, but Mike Grier played and he knows. And look, if the players think that, if Macklin Celebrini thinks that having a guy like Reeves around, that he can see that and that helps him just a little bit. And down the line, like I mentioned, those names, Eklund, Dickinson, if he's in the lineup, guys like that, like if they feel just a smidgen more protected, it doesn't mean that things won't happen. That Ryan really plays 7-8 minutes a game, so he can't be everywhere. He's not gonna play every game either. So, but if just a little more secure, then there is a value to that. How much value? I don't know. But well, this is what we saw. How much value? Well, the value of Henry Thrun. So there is a definite value in that for sure. And look, last year there were a couple incidents where there was the Sharks needed more of a response. And not that they didn't try, not that they didn't have some guys who have a rep for standing up for their teammates, but maybe they needed a little bit more. And two incidents that jump out to mind is when Stenlund boarded Celebrini, and when Mukmadulin got whatever that was from Vetrano, just tripped up. I wouldn't even say attacked, because it wasn't like Vetrano went hard at Mukmadulin, but Mukmadulin did fall awkwardly and obviously did suffer a serious injury because of it. And so those are a couple things that stand out, that I don't know if they happen if Reeves is around. It's those things are hard to quantify, and obviously, again, when you have an enforcer, it doesn't mean that nothing happens anymore. But if it's just a little bit less, or if when you play certain teams, maybe certain teams that aren't as tough as, let's say, a Florida, but other teams around the league where those guys are maybe a little more weak-minded, and maybe seeing Ryan Reaves does have a degree of influence, then there is a value in that. And so anyway, so I don't feel any really way about the trade, I guess, in the end. Besides, I like Henry a lot, and I wish him the best, and I hope that he proves the Sharks, my career, and myself wrong in terms of his career path. But besides that, though, The trade, I don't feel much about. I get it. I get this sort of illogical on the surface swap of a 24-year-old defenseman for a aging enforcer who is closer to retirement than anything else, obviously in his career. But I also see what Mike is seeing in terms of the potential value that Reaves brings that Thrun does not, just essentially a different flavor. Okay. So let's talk now about Jeff Skinner, the Sharks signing Jeff Skinner to a 1 year, $3 million contract. And Skinner, if he can do one thing, and that's score. I'm not sure if he has much else in his game. To talk with other scouts. Uh, I know Mike Grier talked Jeff up quite a bit in his press conference, but he's supposed to. Other scouts, they like the one element that Jeff can bring, and it's obviously is a very, very valuable element in terms of scoring. He also is, from my understanding, a good room presence. He does work hard too, but is he the model two-way player that you're going to staple next to Immaculate Celebrini for the next half decade? He's not. But anyway, though, Jeff represents, now we look at this big picture a little bit. Jeff represents kind of that long search that the Sharks have had this offseason for more help on the wing. And we know it's been reported that they would have liked to have seen Besser and Ehlers in San Jose. That's my understanding too, and other people have reported that they were very interested in Besser. I think I reported that a week before free agency, and in Ehlers too, that they would have loved to have been in it, but it's hard to sell for these guys. It's hard to sell them a last place team unless you're going to break the bank on them. And I'm not sure if the Sharks were prepared to do that for either guy either. So I'm sure that they were willing to offer competitive offers, but they weren't going to give Ehlers $10 million or something silly like that. That'd be like, okay, fine, maybe I'll come over here just for the moolah, right? So I don't think the Sharks were prepared to do that, but I think that they were very interested in bringing some high end wing help to the Sharks for sure. One report that I saw out there that I got some pushback on when I asked around was whether or not the Sharks offered Besser 7 years, which would have contradicted what Mike Grier has said, maintained throughout the offseason, that he had no interest in offering 7-8 year contracts to anybody, that he wanted to go lower. And which clearly he's done every acquisition this offseason, which we'll get to, but every acquisition this offseason has been for 1 or 2 years. Of course, Mike Grier knows that if you want to bring in a Brock Besser in, that he's not coming on a 2-year contract. But I don't know. I'm not sure if Grier went to that lengths, though, to try to procure Brock Besser, contradict everything he said this offseason. I would believe what I'm hearing, and I guess I would say in this case. So I would push back, and like I said, I have a source that's pushed back on that report that the Sharks offered that much to Brock Besser. Maybe it was 5 or 6. I'm not really sure, but I don't know the details of whatever the Sharks might have offered Besser. But either way, though, that no matter what they offered, even if it was in a ballpark, that it was always going to be a tough sell to get a guy to come to a dead last team, not even a team on the rise like Anaheim or whatever, but a dead last team. So, okay. Grier also just suggested in his press conference on Friday that they were also in on some of the star wingers who were traded, or the way he put it was the guys that you're thinking of, that they were in on them. So he didn't say who exactly, but the obvious kind of wingers that got traded this offseason: JJ Paterka, Chris Kreider, Mason Marchment, Trevor Zegras. That I'm not sure exactly who Grier was in on. I would guess any of them except for Zegras. Zegras doesn't sound like a Mike Grier player, even though he did play at BU, but he doesn't sound like a Mike Grier player by my estimation. So I'm not sure if they would have been in on Zegras, but maybe these other guys, they do sound like from the closer to the cloth that Mike Grier might have been looking for. Should know too, though, that Kreider and Marchment, who didn't go for a lot, they had trade protections too. So as we've seen with Barclay Goodrow last year, with the report about Nick Leddy, that a lot of teams, a lot of players still have San Jose on their no trade list, as they should, as they should. Fantastic play to live, awful place to play hockey for most of the last few years. It's getting better, obviously, on the ice part, but you guys know what I mean, though. So 6 years of running out of the playoffs, not an easy sell. And also, too, not even close to the playoffs either. So not an easy sell for anybody, not anybody's first destination, first choice for the most part, unless you're saying like a special scenario like Tyler Toffoli, who wanted no movement clauses, and the Sharks were willing to offer that. So that has to be a really special case. And so anyway, so that was all interesting to hear. And that leads us to Skinner. And last week, San Jose Hockey Now, we reported that the Sharks had passed on Skinner. I still stand by that report. I wrote in a story last week that the Sharks had passed on Skinner as of Wednesday, Wednesday of last week. Things changed. Now, it could have been. I don't know. I haven't gotten sort of the story of what might have changed, but it could be a number of things though. Like fair chance, typical that maybe Skinner came into the free agency this offseason wanting multiple years, and the Sharks didn't want to do that. And maybe no other team stepped up. And so, okay, so then now you're waiting through maybe 1 year offers or maybe 1-2 year offers. And what's the best one that you're getting? Okay, it's San Jose. Well, okay, here's another year for Jeff Skinner to repair his value on the market and maybe come back to market next year much stronger because he's popped in. He's capable of it, popping in 30 goals for the Sharks. And that is the thing about Skinner that is remarkable in the sense of, yeah, it's one dimension, but it's one dimension that he does really, really well. And it's, of course, arguably the most valuable dimension in hockey, scoring goals. So we're talking a 6-time 30-goal scorer, has touched 40 goals. He has a better career resume than Brock Besser. He has a better career resume than Tyler Toffoli. So I get the pursuit. Obviously, Besser is younger, and Besser is better in other areas of the game than Skinner for sure. But one thing about Skinner that I did make sure to check up on, because he was part of a lot of bad Buffalo teams, and so you wonder what his place was in that room. Was he a negative in that room? And from everything that I've pulled back so far, I'll keep kind of digging into that because I'm curious about that. But no, that wasn't the case with the Jeff Skinner. Now, is Jeff Skinner, again, is he going to be around other side of the rainbow when the Sharks are in the playoffs? No, probably not. He is what he does. He is more of a one-dimensional player. So this just to put that out there. So there is a reason why there weren't multiple year contracts, or at least there's a reason why he landed with the Sharks. Just like there's a reason why Orlov landed with the Sharks. That skills in decline to some degree, and maybe not getting the offers that you want that maybe you would have got if you were Dmitry Orlov at 29 or Jeff Skinner at 28 or whatever, right? That you're not getting the offers that you want there because of flaws in your game and some decline in your game. But Jeff Skinner, though, as Mike Grier mentioned, still popped in 16 goals last year in the least amount of ice time of his career, 13 minutes a night, basically a third, fourth line role. And with a lot less power play time too, because obviously you look at the Oilers and they have a pretty set power play. Bouchard, McDavid, Draisaitl, Hyman. So not really a place for Skinner to be getting premium power time like he's been used to throughout his career. And so he is going to get a much better chance at that on the Sharks. So there is a lot of potential here for a Jeff Skinner to pop in 25. And again, with his track record, if he goes higher than that, it wouldn't surprise me. So it's a good sort of low risk, high reward signing for the Sharks. Kind of typifies, and that brings us kind of to our last topic, but it typifies their offseason so far. Everyone that they've acquired has been either 1 year contract, like Ryan Reaves, he's going to be UFA after next year, or 2 years at most. Dmitry Orlov, they signed him to a 2-year contract. And it struck me looking at all this stuff. And of course, it's not like Mike Grier 100% intended this to be the case. If he was going to chase a Brock Besser or Nikolai Ehlers, he would obviously need to give him a few more years. But look at look at San Jose, the Blackhawks, and the Flyers. There's a reason why I'm comparing all these three teams here, but all these three teams have sort of linchpin guys that they clearly seem to be building around. Like, this is going to be our franchise guy when we are good and in the playoffs again. And for the Sharks, obviously it's Macklin Celebrini. For Chicago, it's Connor Bedard. And for the Flyers, it's Matvei Michkov. And look at how much space, though, the Sharks have in their planning for Celebrini when his extension kicks in. So Macklin Celebrini's ELC expires 2026-27. And he's going to be eligible, or his new extension is going to, whatever that is, probably going to be massive at this rate, is going to kick in that year. Also, let's not forget that Will Smith and Yaroslav Askarov will be eligible for huge extensions then too. So this may have calculated into a lot of Grier's thinking, his cautiousness in free agency and trades, that if he was going to give the years that would bleed into Macklin, Will Smith, and Askarov's extensions, that it had to be for what he deemed to be the right guy. This might be why Mikhail Granlund, that they didn't make a better effort to sign him, because Granlund signed for 3 years. One of those years is going to bleed into Macklin's extension, the beginning of Macklin's extension. I don't agree with that, but in terms of just because the Sharks have so much space, it would have been fine. But that's neither here nor there, though. But the point is that it's remarkable if you look at, okay, so pull up your Puckpedia. And so we're going to look at when the extension kicks in for Michkov and Bedard. And they're a year earlier. Their draft was a year earlier. So it's going to be a little different there. But if we look at the Sharks, 2027-28, they have just 3 NHL commitments. They have Tyler Toffoli for 1 extra year. But even that year, he has a no movement for up to 2026-27, the duration of Celebrini's entry-level contract. But 2027-28, that becomes a 15-team trade list. So there's flexibility to even get out of that contract if you want. There's William Eklund. William Eklund's a different case, obviously, being just 22 right now. So he's going to be in the middle of his bridge contract, his 3-year bridge contract at that point. And the only other angel commitment is actually only Tomas Hertl's retained salary, which is a pretty low $1.3875 million. So just 3 angel commitments for when Macklin's extension kicks in. Now let's look at Chicago's extension. And this is maybe one of the reasons why when I talk with people around the league that people like San Jose's rebuild more, even though Chicago has a few more named players right now in terms of veterans, but just that Kyle Davidson is also going to have some contracts in the books when Bedard's extension kicks in that maybe he's not going to want, and a couple more than the Sharks will have. The Sharks are risking Toffoli right now, basically. But, okay, let's look at the Blackhawks, 2026-27, and the veterans are on the books for when Connor Bedard's extension is going to kick in. They have Burakovsky, granted, just a year left, but still, he's on the books for 2026-27. They have Bertuzzi for a couple more years. They have Tero Teravainen for another year. They have Ryan Donato, who's got 3 years left at that point in 2026-27. They also have Alex Vlasic, too, but Vlasic is in the Eklund camp, young player you want around. So that's not a problem there. But anyway, though, those 4 forwards, and they also will need to pay Spencer Knight there, so very similar to Askarov. So you're basically be building a lot around Bedard and Spencer Knight then, but you're going to have, and granted, these aren't prohibitive contracts on the books. Burakovsky, Bertuzzi, Teravainen, and Donato all make under $5.5 million. But man, this is not a murderer's row, though. I mean, I like Tyler Toffoli more than any of these forwards, I think, on this list. Burakovsky, Bertuzzi, Teravainen, and Donato, especially if you also add there's an on-the-ice element with Toffoli, but also the off-the-ice component. But that's my opinion. Burakovsky and Bertuzzi are Teravainen, and Donato are younger than Toffoli, so they might be better in the back half of the contract than Toffoli. But right now, though, I definitely like Toffoli more than any of those guys. And so I found that interesting. And that also, again, might explain sort of the caution that Mike has shown this offseason. And he's not just setting up to make the team better next year, which he is trying to do, but he is also setting up for three potentially massive extensions in 2027, 28, and then filling out the team around that. Which other teams here, like I mentioned, 2026, 27, when Bedard's extension kicks in, it looks like Spencer Knight's the big one, but it's not Smith, Celebrating, and Askarov. So okay, let's look at the Flyers. The Flyers have planned around a lot around Matvei Michkov. And granted, the Flyers are ahead of sort of competitively, right? They have better veteran players than the Sharks, but the question is, how will these contracts age out, and will they be able to be will they be worth the money that they're making by the time you've got to pay Matvei Michkov? And Matvei Michkov, actually, even though he was Bedard's year, came into the league later, so his extension kicks in during the same year as Celebrini and Smith and Askarov, 27, 28. But look at all the contracts that the Flyers have on the books then, and we'll see how they age. But there's a lot of contracts here, and there is some youth here, but it's not as young as Alex Vlasic or William Eklund for sure. So anyway, 27, 28, they've got Travis Konechny on the books. They have Sean Couturier, whose contract has not aged quite as his game has been up and down, and he's 32 now. So by the time we get to 27, 28, he's going to be 35 and still have a couple years left on his deal. Owen Tippett, Noel Cates, both 26-year-olds. Again, the Flyers are in a different kind of phase. They're kind of appear like they're trying to juggle both, a little bit of a rebuild, but still trying to be competitive here. And then Travis Sanheim, who granted is a bargain at $6.25 million, but he's 29 now. He's in the prime of his career. And they just signed Cameron York, younger player, to a long contract. So he's going to be on the books. They have veteran Nick Seeler on the books too. So they've got a lot of money tied up already for by the time Michkov's extension kicks in. And granted, I'm looking at it, they don't have anybody like, I'm not sure if they have anybody like Spencer Knight, a Askarov, a Will Smith that they also need to sign with a Michkov. Let me see. I don't think they do. Let's take a quick look at it. At least anybody that I know that they like that much that is in the caliber of a Will Smith. Yeah, so they have kind of their kingpin guy in Michkov, but I'm not sure about what else that they've got, what else they're gonna like. They obviously have Zegras and Drysdale there, who were great prospects for the Ducks, but who have maybe not quite blossomed into the stars that the Ducks obviously hope that they would be. And so we'll see what they bring. So maybe they will be big money extensions for the Flyers too, or maybe not. But anyway, though, I found it very interesting. I'm not saying any one way is right or wrong, but I do look at Chicago's veterans and I'm not really inspired by them. And there might be too many of them. There's an argument for that. And I like a lot of Flyers players now. You like Konechny, Sanheim, but are you going to like him in 27, 28 when you got to pay Matvei Michkov maybe $10 million? I don't know. So I think that is very, very interesting. Anyway, there's a lot more to talk about this. This isn't what the show is about, but I think when we talk about Grier's grand plan, and I wanted to add that to my story yesterday, but the story was getting long. The story still clocks in at 1,500 words. So I thought, maybe save it for another time. Maybe I'll write about it, or maybe I'll tell you guys on the podcast that I found that very, very interesting. And it's just a cursory research too. There's other teams, other rebuilds, Anaheim, Columbus, not a rebuild, but they have Fantilli, 2023, high 2023 pick too. So anyway, there's other kind of ways to look at to compare the Sharks too. It's not just the Blackhawks and the Flyers, but it's just a cursory search that I found very, very interesting. But anyway, So thanks again for putting up with me for 45 minutes, or as many of you have told me that you're putting me at 1.25 or 1.5 speed. I take no offense to that. So whatever gets you through, well, John London said, whatever gets you through the night. So whatever gets you to this podcast. But anyway, right now we have Steve Peters. Really excited for this conversation. Talk all about the Sharks lineup opening night. What we're seeing, granted, we're just in July, but it's a lot of fun to talk about. And it's really a lot of fun to talk about with a guy as smart as Steve. So anyway, here's Steve. Enjoy the interview. I'll see you guys next week. Hey, we have a special guest here on the San Jose Hockey Now podcast. Really excited to have Steve Peters. You've been seeing his work. Just follow him at S Peters Hockey. You've been seeing his video breakdowns with Dmitry Filipovich. They've been doing some great work there. Also, too, just at S Peters Hockey on Twitter, he's been doing great video breakdowns. He covered all the playoffs. You can just see a lot of just really in detail stuff. And so really excited to have Steve on here. He was also the video coach of the Phoenix/Arizona Coyotes from 1996 to 2020. So again, from the minute
that's a long time, Sheng. That's a long time. Jeez.
And also video coach of Team North America in the 2016 World Cup, former University of North Dakota goalie, and he's now the telestration producer / video breakdowns at ESPN. Hey, Steve, how's it going?
It's going great, Sheng. You always think playoffs are over and you think, okay, hockey's over, right? And then they throw the draft at us in free agency, and here we are again. And it just never seems to end. And we are always talking hockey. So I really appreciate you having me on today and getting to talk a little San Jose Shark hockey today.
And the reason why I'm having Steve on is because with his coaching background, his video background, can talk to him about sort of some of the Sharks kind of decisions here, how he kind of sees the lines, and just some tactical stuff. So that's really excited to have Steve on here to talk about that. And to kind of facilitate this, we're going to actually move away a little bit from the lovely faces of Steve and myself, and we're going to put up Puckpedia and put up their lines there, and that's we're going to kind of go line by line of kind of what we think the Sharks might be kind of hoping to do on opening night. Now, granted, injuries can happen, which will happen, I'm sure. Also, too, Sharks may have something else up their sleeve, but Mike Grier did kind of say that he thought that they were probably done, but he also mentioned that, hey, Yaroslav Askarov, we traded for him in August. So, of course, anything can happen, but let's presume right now that the Sharks are done after trading for Ryan Reaves, trading Henry Thrun for Ryan Reaves, and signing Jeff Skinner. So let's pull up this Puckpedia page, and we'll kind of break it down with Steve.
Yeah, I think, Sheng, one of the things interesting here when we talk about San Jose and what they're going to do, it's really what do they want to be and what's next in the progression and what does Grier see this team becoming? And like, if you want to get more wins, I mean, they were last. You're last. You have 20 wins. You're fewest home wins, fewest road wins. You're last in every major category. So you need to improve. That's first and foremost. You have to improve. And I think the fan base needs it. I think the players need it. That you need to see that improvement. But to what end? And I think you're really going to see where these lines start to come together. Is the purpose to win more hockey games? Is the purpose to win a few more games and develop younger players? Or is it somewhere in between? And I do think that that's where you're seeing with Wasowski and Grier. Like you're in a tough spot. Like, what is this going to be, and what is this development going to look like when they start playing up in September here in the fall?
Well, yeah, actually, that's the first question that I would ask you as I'm trying to fiddle around with this setup here. Are the Sharks, do you think that they're better, or is that something that's better served to answer in a little bit when
no, I think they're better. I think he's made good moves, and I think he's trying to do things. And look, I'm a big believer in you have to get better from the back end out. I think you need to defend better. I think you need to have better goaltending. Are they better this year? I mean, Askarov, you're looking at a guy he's a kid. I mean, I think you're throwing him to the wolves to some extent, but then you bring in Nedeljkovic. And I think Nedeljkovic is a good 1B. I think he has started. He can play those long stretches of games. And I think that's exactly what you need in San Jose, just in case. I mean, Askarov, maybe he runs 8 in a row or 10 in a row, and he's playing great. But then maybe there's a stretch he really struggles. And I think it's gives you some confidence from the back end now that you have that ability to play two guys and they're fairly even. Hey, let's make no mistakes. This San Jose Shark team is not ready to run for a Stanley Cup next season. And I think fans understand that. Management clearly understands that. But they need to show improvement and they need to be better. And I do think some of the players they've brought in and through trades, free agency, what have you, I think they are better. And I think they're better on paper. So it's just a matter of how we're going to put all these guys together. And we're the odd man out because there's more forwards and more D than fit into a roster right now.
Right. So let's get into that right now. And just if you guys are watching or listening. So right now I have from Puckpedia, they have a handy kind of line chart that can kind of move things around. Now, don't look at really what's up there right now, because right now what we have there is kind of their default. And so so let's kind of move away from this default. I'm going to actually send a lot of people down right now. so don't worry, guys. I just sent Will Smith down to the minors. No big deal.
The power you wish you had, Sheng, is send you guys down to the minors. Just send Wenberg down. Pretty sure he's not getting sent down, Shark fan. But it's interesting to look at Wenberg, and we'll talk about it as you send him down, is not just what line does he play in, but what role do they want some of these veteran guys to play in?
Right.
Is it going to be, again, we talked about that dichotomy of winning games or improving and their youth. And a player, Wenberg's exactly a perfect example. Like, he's a guy that can help you win. He's an experienced 200-foot player, can play anywhere up and down your lineup. But do you need to have that spot for a Will Smith? Do you need to have him be on the wing now to help nurture a young player along? And I think that's going to be some of the bigger decisions that the coaching staff is going to have when they sit down at training camp. Who fits into their natural positions and who is going to be there to help the younger players get better. And Wenberg's exactly a perfect example of that.
I've just sent Macklin Celebrini down, guys.
That'd be the last day you worked in San Jose, Sheng. You'd be done.
First, I did a fan favorite move by sending down Ryan Reaves, which I'm sure people want to see. But
yeah, we'll have to talk about that as we get down in this lineup.
But okay, puzzled. So I wonder your approach with this, Steve. That are you kind of thinking about kind of a balanced group, or is it more like you're just kind of putting together like the best first line, best second line? How are you kind of approaching? Just so
I tell you, a peek behind the curtain, what coaches are going to do when they're trying to develop this stuff, getting ready for training camp. And by the way, the lines they're coming up with now in the middle of July are going to change after they skated once, because you get excited about a trio and you think, gosh, these guys are going to be great together. And you plan it. And then 1 or 2 days into practice, you go, it's not working. Right. And we've saw it in the Arizona Coyotes over and over. Hey, these guys are going to be great together. And they're just not. I like to see, when I've learned this from coaches like Dave Tippett, is you usually start with pairs up front. You do duos. You don't look for a group of 3, you look for a group of 2. And when I look at the top line for the San Jose Sharks, I think clearly we're not going to think outside the box too far. This Macklin Celebrini is the number 1 center of the San Jose Sharks.
Period. So
Macklin Celebrini is he's the number 1 center. I think that's his future of this team. I think that's where he belongs. I think that he is the number 1 center of the future and the present. And I really do.
So he's earned a call up here.
Yeah, he has got to call up, and he's the number 1 center. But then you have to look at, who's his dynamic duo? Who's the guy that makes him better, and who's the guy that you want to have him playing with for sure? And for me, it's William Eklund. Okay, and I think that you saw that dynamic duo throughout the season last year, and I like those two together. I think this is an opportunity if you got a 22-year-old and a 19-year-old that can grow together and not just get those key minutes now, but it's the key minutes in the future when they're going to be winning.
Right.
And I think that's important. And I think you're going to say, hey, okay, they're good now on an average team. But when this team is good, and buddy, I believe this is going to be a really good hockey team because of their young players. And when we talk about advanced 3 years from now, it's Chicago and San Jose and, potentially Utah battling this thing out, maybe throw Anaheim in there too. But they're the teams in the West that are going to be dangerous. And it's because of these young players. What do you think, Sheng? Are we on track for these two players on the top line?
I wonder what you think in terms of why their skills blend. That you think that this is the pick for the duel. Some Sharks fans might say, well, Celebrini and Toffoli, because obviously you have the rookie and the vet, the playmaker and the shooter. Also, some people will say Celebrini and Will Smith just for the vibes.
Yep.
So
Well, yeah,
why Eklund and Celebrini?
the problem with Will Smith, because I like Will Smith's energy and I like his ability to get pucks to the net, and I like how he plays from the blue line in. The problem with Will Smith is Grier says he's going to be a center.
Right.
And if Grier says he's going to be a center, well, Macklin Celebrini is going to be a center, like period.
Right.
So you're kind of, if Will Smith's going to get reps at center, and having said that, I'm going to get way ahead of myself, Sheng.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going to give Will Smith reps at center, you can't have Michael Misa have reps at center.
Right.
Because you cannot have an 18 and 19 and a 20-year-old in your 1, 2, 3 lines up the middle.
That'd be crazy.
I can't.
Conceivably it can happen, but yeah.
Yeah, if you want to play for the World Juniors, fine. But you're playing in the National Hockey League, you're going to get pushed around. They won't win any faceoffs. They're going to struggle. And so I think that's what we're talking about. If we're going to put Will Smith at center, I say, like, I know you can juggle me around, but let's drop in Will Smith as a number 2 seed.
Yeah, let's do that then. Yeah, we'll jump around a little bit here. Okay, Will, you've earned a call up. Good for you.
Yeah,
good job.
Because I do think that it's interesting what's going to happen on the wings of both of these players, and I think it's going to be interesting. And I think Will Smith, now, again, this is just going to film because that's what I do. I watch film, and there's a player I'm actually really excited about playing with Will Smith.
Okay.
It's a new player to the franchise. It's a guy, he's got good energy. He can put the puck in the net. He drives the net from the right side.
Yeah.
And I picture him with Will Smith just as another tandem. And on that right side, I really like he's a guy that's can put up 20 goals in the league, is Adam Gaudette. And you watch.
Oh, that's a very spicy take. Okay. I like this. Okay.
But he's a bigger player that can get to the net. He's got a dangerous shot. He can put up numbers, and I like his pace.
Yeah.
And he's 28, but he plays like a 22-year-old. I mean, the energy this kid plays with.
Okay, not quite first line, but here you go, second line.
Yeah, I think this kid, and I keep calling him a kid.
Yeah.
I like him, and I think he's kind of the energy that can go along with Will Smith. The good news is he can take draws if you have to.
Sure.
He's also one of those versatile centermen, and he's a right wing. So if Will has to play on the right side, if there's ever issues, it's easy interchangeable. Those two guys taking draws,
right. Let Will
playing
take
the right
strong side, right? Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yep. So I really like that as a tandem. What do you think, Sheng? Am I way outside the box on that one?
No, the Sharks honestly are not a great team. So these are reasonable kind of, and like you mentioned, when coaches put this together too, it's not like a fancy lineup. Let's just put our best players on first line, best scorers on a second line. It's about trying to find a balance of skills to accentuate each other, to elevate each other. And so what I would ask you about Gaudette is, I think it's a really interesting pick. Gaudette's had a really kind of wayward career, a winding career, I would say, winding path of a career. 5 years ago in Vancouver, he put up 33 points in, I think, 59 games. He looked like he was going to be a regular top 9 kind of guy. And then for 4 years there, he just was kind of bouncing around before he sort of found his game in Ottawa. 19 career high, 19 goals last year, and really just kind of like a fourth line role. He played about 10 minutes a night and played on the second power play unit for the Senators. Really interesting player, actually. There's not a lot of players like that in the league that play fourth line minutes and with a heavy emphasis on power play, and he's good on a power play too. Only other guy I can think of off the top is like a Stefan Nason a couple of years ago.
But he's a better skilled player than that. He's really good from the hash marks in, and he's a guy that can finish. And I do think he's a bigger guy that can get inside.
Right.
And you talk about his fourth line ability, but he skates well enough that he can play higher in the lineup. And again, temper some of this to your point. Do the San Jose Sharks have 6 forwards that are better? The answer is yes. But do they have 6 forwards that fit? And do you want that balance down through your lineup to carry down through your third line?
Yes.
And I think that they do. So again, that's why and again, I tell you what, he might be playing on the fourth line on the wing when this whole season starts. And some of these guys might not even be in the lineup when the season starts. Yeah. But I watched a lot of film this morning on him.
Yeah.
And he got me excited, and it got me excited to play with a guy like Will Smith. And I think the two of them will find this chemistry that you saw from the top line at times last year. Like the San Jose's top line, man, there were some really high-end skilled goals and skilled plays in that trio in the 70s line. And I think that you're going to find some chemistry with Will Smith and Gaudette as well.
Okay,
And
I
then
like it.
maybe I'm
I
wrong. So I
like your
like it. That's where we're
energy here.
starting.
And
That's
actually,
where I want to
yeah,
go.
I'll show everybody who's listening, watching here. I'll show everybody later. But one of the reasons why that I'm having Steve on here too, because I knew he was going to be prepared for this. So the second I asked him to come on, he was already doing post-its with lines and players, like he
Yeah.
like he mentioned, he was watching the video today. So this is actually a real treat. We're lucky to get Steve in a bit of an off-season moment here before the regular season grind to have him basically be the video coach for the Sharks for a morning. So okay,
And
so
but I want to temper it though, Sheng.
yeah.
And that's why your thoughts. You know the personalities of these players,
Mhm.
and you see these guys 82 games a year, and you see them on and off the ice, and your input's invaluable here. Like I'm just looking at, I just if I don't see it, I don't say it,
Mhm.
but I also don't see them play 82 games a year, and so I
Well,
might be just getting the wrong highlights and seeing things. I want to have a reason why I say things, and I'm also going to look at experience
mhm.
and veteran, what kind of a player they are. And that's why this left wing on that line is going to be really hard. It's a really
Yeah,
hard, tough spot. I'm picking that one out. So I'm going to hold that off for a minute there,
yeah.
Shane.
Well, the Gaudette part, I haven't seen enough tape of him, but I think it is an intriguing pick because I think that it's hard to, because when you look at this and you kind of think like, okay, Celebrini and let's say Eklund are my dynamic duel. Like you said, a lot of coaches like to kind of think in duels, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so if you want to say like in a construction of this of lines that everybody listening that you saw last week that I did without Jeff Skinner and without Ryan Reaves, I actually put Tyler Toffoli with Will Smith on the second line. Not that Tyler Toffoli is clearly the best right winger on the Sharks, but
Sure.
we're talking about balance here, right? And but you can't do Skinner, Smith, and Toffoli. That doesn't really make sense. You can't. That's just not a good kind of balancing of your resources there. And so I was having a challenge going into this in terms of what makes sense on second line right wing. And so that's why I like your pick. I actually already had Gaudette kind of moving up in the lineup from his Ottawa minutes, just because I could see the potential there too. Last week I had him on third line right wing, and now he's been promoted. So he's done a lot in the
Yeah.
last week there.
Well, but you know what this does though, Sheng? It does allow you to keep who I think is the best right winger on this team on the top
Yes.
line.
Yes,
And,
yes. And
and I
that
do
is
think when you go back and watch Eklund, Celebrini, and Tyler Toffoli play, I've liked Tyler Toffoli for a very long time. And
mhm,
another behind the curtain story. We were in Arizona, and John Chaik was the general manager. Rick Tocchet was the coach, and we were talking about trades. Arizona was
mhm.
first place, surprisingly, at that time in 2019. It was
Yeah.
before COVID. And we were talking about Tyler Toffoli. We needed a right wing guy that can score, can play Shane Doan, a guy that can be just a cog in the wheel in Arizona. And 2 days later, we got Taylor Hall. And
Oh,
Taylor,
right.
Taylor Hall didn't fit, and it
Yeah.
didn't work with where Arizona was, and that's why we're talking about what pieces fit, and that's why what fits in San Jose doesn't fit necessarily in Minnesota or Colorado or Dallas, but it can fit in San Jose. And I think Tyler Toffoli is an exceptional goal scoring right winger. I think he gets to the net. I think he make high skilled plays. He's going to play on your power play, and I also like this that you're getting your power play guys spread out between your top two lines, especially if
Yeah.
Gaudette's a guy that might get some second term power play. So I like this top line. I think they've earned the right to play together again, and I think they're very creative. They know each other well, and I think this bodes well for them going into camp.
Yeah, I think that acquiring Skinner, we haven't talked about him yet on the lines,
Yeah,
but it gives the Sharks a chance to kind of balance things out, kind of like you say here, that now it makes sense to put Foley on the first line. You don't need to desperately give Smith somebody to play with and pair Smith with Foley here, because you have other options. You have another option here now for Smith possibly. And also I love your point about fit. Like back then, Taylor Hall, no, not casting any aspersions on Taylor, but Taylor Hall was
right.
coming a couple years away from being an MVP, a speed demon. Like he was the big name, right? But sometimes it's
Yeah.
just about fit. And a guy like Toffoli, slower, just smart, knows where to go to score and shoot, sometimes is a better fit for your team than the guy that is racing with the puck head on fire from one end to another.
And he's a veteran guy. I mean, he's a 33-year-old player that knows how to play in the league. And I think when you look down the line, you got 19 and 22-year-old on your side there. It's good to have somebody that's been through the wars before and been through
Right.
different situations. And I think that you're going to see that as a balance throughout this lineup. Is you're going to see these young players, and that's one of the reasons I think Gaudette was Smith, because I don't think Gaudette plays like a 28-year-old. I do think he's got the energy of a young guy, and I'm curious to see how he comes into camp. But the hard part now is that left wing with that second line.
Okay.
Because I know we're thinking Skinner.
Right. Yeah.
And Skinner's the guy here. I've got three guys. I've got three guys.
Three guys you're thinking of, but are you
the guys I'm thinking
Skinner?
of?
Okay.
Skinner's one of the three.
Oh, okay. So you're not sure yet. Okay.
No, I'm not.
Okay.
And my first I put Philip Kurashev. So Philippe Kurashev, I put there, and I know he plays a lot on the right side, but in Chicago last year when he was playing with Bedard, he played a lot on the left. And again, we're talking a 25-year-old. Yeah, he's a 25-year-old left-handed winger that can play with pace and play with speed. I am concerned about putting him with Will Smith and their ability to defend. And Kurashev, if he does have something, I'm a little worried about his ability to play a 200-foot game and play in the defensive zone. And I think he's a guy that's still at his age looking for consistency in his game.
Sure, of course, yeah.
I do think if you're looking for all-out speed, I like him. But speed and skill, I do like him better than Skinner. Because Skinner's 33 and he's getting a little long in the tooth. So one of the reasons I put him there. And then the third guy is really tough. Sheng, and you're going to not like me, is because I looked at Alex Wenberg there, another guy that could play center when Will Smith can't take draws. He's a left-hander, so you can put him on the left wing. And now you're talking experience. You go Wenberg, Smith, Gaudette. You throw them out as your second line. Now you got balanced scoring in your top two lines. You got high skill. You got young players playing with veteran players. But it's tough because you want Wenberg playing down the middle.
Right. The Sharks don't have quite enough depth in terms of you mentioned, we talked about this earlier. The Sharks have a lot of guys who can play center. I mean, Kurashev and Gaudette, for example, who will probably end up on the wing. But you have three good centers, and you really have two centers that you feel good about on the Sharks right now. That's Macklin and Alex Wenberg. And Will Smith is really a question mark just because he played wing most of the year. But you're assuming that Will, number 4 pick, and that's doing some heavy lifting here, and you assume that he'll
but here's the thing:
a jump next year to be center.
But here's the funny thing. Now that I look at my lines, and the way I've got them arranged, I like Skinner with Wenberg, so I put Skinner on the left with Wenberg in the middle. So now my 2 and 3 lines could be interchangeable. But you're right, because Wenberg's my 2, Will's my 3. But they're like 2A, 2B. Like they're going to have those kind of minutes. So I've got Wenberg in the middle of the third line with Jeff Skinner on his left.
Now I would counter this though, that my issue with doing that, it makes sense in terms of the on the ice stuff, because last year Alex's greatest success was when he was with Tyler Toffoli. And we know with Alex, as kind of fabulously talented as he is, he doesn't like to shoot. And so you need to put him with somebody who will shoot, which is Tyler Toffoli, which is Jeff Skinner. So on a deeper team, Skinner and Wenberg on a third line actually is that could take you to, that could help get you to the playoffs.
Yeah, that's a playoff third line.
It's not going to drive you to the playoffs, but like if you have a guy who can possibly pop in 25, 35 goals with an all-around guy like Wenberg on your third line, I mean but that leaves a gaping hole though at your
both. It leaves a gaping hole on your second line left wing and your third line right wing. And both of those are holes that are tough to fill. And that's when we talk about, again, this depth of this team. You know, you've nice players. I mean, I like Barclay Goodrow. He's a nice player. You know, Ty Dellandrea, a nice player. But they're all guys that are in the bottom of the lineup.
Right. Brunstrom, Reaves, all those.
Brunstrom, Reaves, Dellandrea. They're all bottom of the lineup guys. So now it's filling these two holes that's tough for me. And I know that Kurashev's going to be one of the two. Like if he's going to play right side with Wenberg and Skinner, or he's going to play on the left side with Smith and Gaudette. But if you don't put him up there with Smith and Gaudette, now you got a big hole.
For balance, could I argue then that now you have Celebrity and Toffoli together? So is there an argument to drop Eklund down and then move Kurashev up, and then suddenly
and that could be more balanced.
have a lot more balance. So
Yeah, and that could be too, and that might make some sense, especially we're talking about pairs, and we were worried Toffoli had to come down to help balance Wells Smith.
yeah,
But now we got a player like if we bring Eklund down here, another young dynamic player to play with Will Smith, a guy that's they're going to put up points, and you put
right.
Kurashev, a guy who's played with Connor Bedard.
Okay, let's put up
Like
Khrushchev. Yeah.
like Kurashev's played with Bedard, and he's played with some of the best young talent in the National Hockey League, and he played his best hockey when he played with Bedard. And so I think again, and I think this is where people get, you've got to balance lines that fit. And you
Right.
can't just say, oh, our three best players are first and our next three are next. Doesn't work that way.
Okay,
Because
so
now you go,
are you
I
okay with
like
this
this. Yeah, I am.
bold drop Eklund down then?
Yeah, I am.
Not really a
I'm
drop, but just that we're balancing things, or we'll
but
keep
again, it's
Khrushchev.
balance. Now you've got three lines. If you do this and put Kurashev there, and you want to know who my right wing is with Wenberg?
Yes. Okay.
So I've got an experienced line that can play up and down the ice. I put Barclay Goodrow there. And I know you're
Ooh,
not as
that's
high on
I don't know if I
Goodrow.
agree with that one because
I know you're not as
Barkley,
high on Goodrow
yeah,
as I am.
yeah,
I know you're not as high on him, but if I got Skinner, Wedberg, and Barkley Goodrow, I got a veteran, experienced group that I can go out either side of the puck and I can feel fine about. I'm worried about their speed and their pace
right.
with Goodrow, but that's what I put in there. So now, if you don't put him there, then it's back to where we were again. Now it's getting tough.
With Barkley, it's this is the Barkley Gaudreau from a couple of years ago. I have no issue with this, but Barkley looked like he may have lost something even last year.
Yeah,
And of
he
course
definitely
that's
lost
why
a
the
step.
Rangers let him go. If
Absolutely
Barkley
lost a step.
Yeah, was what they signed, then they would have kept him. So
so let's work from our bottom way up then, Sheng, because I know,
Okay.
and here's one player we haven't mentioned yet is Ryan Reaves.
Okay.
Ryan Reaves not in the lineup. He's not in my starting lineup for the San Jose
Okay.
Sharks. I don't know. I don't see the 38-year-old tough guy playing in the Pacific Division. I looked through the Pacific Division trying to find someone that he's going to fight on a regular basis. I don't see who that player is. If he's not going to fight, he doesn't belong in the lineup for me because he's not quick enough. Doesn't provide any offense. All he's going to do is take penalties trying to get guys to fight him.
He
honestly
seems to be, based on talking with people, talking with scouts, that if we're talking about the Ryan Reaves 5 years ago, Ryan Reaves 5 years ago was still a ferocious
for sure
presence. He still was to be feared on a forecheck. But it appears, though,
yes,
that
on a fourth line role, he could be a guy that could be dangerous and go, oh, he's on the ice. I don't think that, especially with the fleet of foot defensemen in the National Hockey League right now. I'm not sure how many guys are, and no offense to Ryan Reaves, great career. He's 38 and he plays a particular role. I just don't see that role being a valid position in the Pacific Division right now.
But
if you're playing in the East, I think
Ryan,
you need it.
Though, like he is, I don't think they're going to send him right down. So I think he's got to be in the as your 13 forward at least.
He is your 13 forward
at 13.
Yeah, he's your 13 forward. 100%. He's your 13 forward. You can't have him. Like, do you want him? Do you want, like, if you want Colin Graff? Do you want Colin Graff sitting every night?
Colin Graff actually was playing.
Not saying he's not going to be in the lineup. He can be in the lineup.
Yeah,
he could be. I'm saying, would you play Reaves ahead of Colin Graff? And the answer is no. If you're going to play Colin Graff, you want Colin Graff playing. So if you're going to have somebody sitting and riding in a bus or not playing, it's Ryan Reaves.
Well, how about Graff?
I'm not saying Graff's in.
Yeah.
I'm not saying Graff's in.
Okay.
I'm just saying because we got our fourth line center. We agree on this, right? Zach's playing fourth line center.
You like Zach there? Okay. Yeah. No, I think he's the guy that they want there. Though Giles did look okay at 4C last year, so he's definitely a contender.
He's in the mix for sure. But
they didn't trade Fabian Zetterlund for, they traded Fabian Zetterlund to get a guy that they thought would be their 4C of the future in Ostapchuk and possibly 3C if everything works out. But that's kind of.
But I think I think he fits here. Now you look through the middle of the ice, you've got some experience, some size, some speed, some youth. Like I think you've got a good mix up the middle right now, and you've got enough guys that can play center, that can fill in if Will Smith can't toe the rope. Somebody else can jump in there, and then. So Ty Dellandrea, where do you want Dellandrea?
Well, I want to put an argument for Graff, actually, because Graff last year, and granted, this was for a very bad team, so it's hard to read too much into it. But they started using Graff as a top penalty killer. Graff is and they used him on the top 9 for the most part. Granted, they didn't have a lot of options, so this is not the highest recommendation. But I would have Graff ahead of Gaudreau. On the 3RW
third line
at least.
And
Yeah.
again, this Sheng, this is really goes. This is going to be where development becomes
Mhm.
part of the issue, and where does Grier see? And Graf again, yes, if we put him on the right side there instead of Goudreau on the third line, then we got experience. We can get him some touches and get him to grow with like two experienced, really
Right.
good National Hockey League players, which is ideal. So I have no problem putting him there. I don't want to see him playing on the fourth line
No, I
because
agree. I agree. I agree. And he's waiver exempt, so he's better served if if fourth line is his only space for him to just send him
yeah, then
down
he's
to the
got to play in the
Barracuda
minors
and let him
because if he's in the
dominate.
Barracuda, now he's top line players playing power plays, playing every, and this is where it's hard when you're 20 to 23, even 24 at times. What's better?
Yeah.
And some people will argue getting the minutes against the best players in the world in the National Hockey League is important, and others will argue it's better getting the right minutes against the right opponents in the American League.
Mm.
And Graf's going to be interesting because he's a guy. I think training camp is going to be vital for him to show that he can play at that kind of a pace with these guys consistently. Because now you're going to get somebody's going to either have to get somebody got in a one-way contract, either going to have to get sent down or you're going to have to make a move because
Yeah,
now
yeah, yeah.
we're starting to get stocked up here. And you know what
We
else
have a
we
very
haven't?
interesting looking group, and so I want to lay it out there. If you can't watch this on YouTube, so we've kind of talked about it, and maybe I should have done a better job of breaking down line by line. But right now, though, we have Kurashev, Celebrini, and Toffoli on your first line. Again, keep in mind that we're just trying to balance things out. And it's not necessarily like your best on your first line. Eklund, Smith, pair them together with Adam Gaudette on your second line. It looks like we have decided on Skinner, Wenberg, and Graf on your third line. Ryan Reaves, in Steve's estimation and mine too, wouldn't necessarily be on the roster, but he's here. Mike, he does have a value. He does do something that
Yes,
all these other guys can't do, and not just fight, but just have that sort of that when people, coaches and GMs love to use that phrase, like he makes everybody feel a little bit taller. Nobody else on the Sharks can do that. Now, if Reeves can do that, add the intangible value to Macklin Celebrini's game, to Will Smith's game, then who are we to how do you say argue with that intangible value? I don't see it.
sure.
You don't see it, but he's here, so he's our 13th forward.
But
It
you're
looks
right,
like
Sheng. And there are times, Sheng, and I want to say this about Ryan Reeves. There
yeah.
are times when a player like that, especially when you're looking at a team full of 18, 19, and 20-year-olds,
Mhm.
that, yeah, they do feel a little bit better when you've got some muscle in behind them.
There's a value, yeah.
It absolutely is. And I don't want to say that doesn't exist, but I'm thinking of the teams they're playing on a nightly basis. Vancouver doesn't have that guy. Calgary doesn't
Mm.
have that guy. Edmonton doesn't have that guy. Like, I'm not sure when they go out east. Yeah, he's going to get on the ice. And certain nights, maybe they've got a 2-game set against the LA Kings, a week apart, and there were some dust ups in the first game. Well, Ryan Reeves will be there in the second game, and
Yeah.
so yeah, I think he will be a weapon to be used at the right time, and so I do think he's important to have on the roster for the right moments.
Yeah, I think long run, we haven't got there yet because we haven't got to the defense. But right now, I think the Sharks opening night, if they stay healthy, will run 13 forwards, 8 defensemen, and 2 goalies, because you want to fit Sam Dickinson into the defense. But if but once Dickinson, that situation resolves itself, like whether or not he stays in the NHL or not, or they send him back to London, then ideally you probably want 14 forwards and have Reeves be
Yeah.
your 14th guy and sort of slot him in when you need that weapon. But anyway, that's we
Okay.
haven't got to the defense yet. So we
So
have a
now we got
stop check and
yep, a
Goodrow,
stop
right?
check
Yeah,
there and Goodrow there. Now we've got one
need
player to
a
fit,
left
and
winger on the fourth
so
line. We have a lot
do
of
we need
guys
Carl
missing.
Grunst? So we got Grunstrom.
Yeah, I want to read
We
off the names really fast. So we
yeah.
have Grunstrom still looking for a spot. Delandria, Afanaseyev. We haven't even talked about Michael Misa yet.
I know. He's up on the
uh,
side of my board because I have
yeah,
thoughts.
Patrick Giles too, though he's mostly a center. And yeah, so one of these guys is
To me,
probably going to have to go to
Giles
waivers. A
goes
couple of these
down, and
guys maybe.
it's Grunstrom and Delandria are the two, and who
Okay.
who can be for me, and then we'll have the Michael Misa discussion because I think it's
Right.
important. Between those two, who is more effective and can do more things for a young club?
Yeah, I think Grunstrom is definitely the more skilled player, but Delandra is kind of more speed maybe, and kind of
Delandria's got
the
a better motor, right? Like
yeah,
I
yeah,
like Delandria a lot. I
yeah,
had a 24-year-old kid that can play in the middle, he can play on the right side, and I'm sure if they need him to play on the left side, I'm sure he can. Well, we got Barkley who can play on the left side, and he can play on the right.
right,
So I like Delandria in the lineup over Grunstrom, and that's what we're talking about. Those two extra forwards. Then it's Grunstrom and Reaves.
yeah. Okay, yeah, that makes
And
sense.
I'm
That
going to
makes
put
sense to me.
Goudreau. I'm going to put Goudreau over on the left, and I'm going to put Delandria on the right.
Okay, okay, okay. Let's see. Where
And
did
then before we go to the D, though, I
there
do
you
want
go.
to talk about Michael Misa
Yes.
because this is tough. Because Michael Misa, the problem in his mind, he's going to compete for a job. So he says in training camp.
Right.
Grier said he's going to compete for a job in training
Looks
camp.
like it. Yeah.
The problem is what do you want to see him long term in the National League? It doesn't mean he has to start as a center today. It doesn't mean that. He can start as a wing. He's played a lot of wing in his career. He's played left wing. That's fine. But where do you want him long term? Do you want him to be a center long term? Because if you are, you need to get him reps in the middle of the ice. And we already said you can't do that if you're going to say Will Smith is going to get the reps in
Well,
the
I
middle of
would
the ice.
argue with that though, because the Sharks have done this before, where they started a guy that they believe is a center long term on the wing, and then transitioned him over.
Yep. And that could be.
Possibly, Tomas Hertl was an example of that, where they always knew that
He would end up in the middle.
they end up in the middle, but they start off in wing at the beginning. And Smith obviously is the example of that, though it hasn't worked yet, like it did with Hertl. We don't know what's going to happen with Will Smith yet. So I think with Misa, and just a reminder to everybody, and we talked about Misa last week, when he did play wing for Saginaw before last year, it was mostly on the left side. And so I think you want to make him, if you do put him on the wing, you want to put him on a side that he has more comfort in for sure. And so that's kind of what we're talking about, maybe him on the left side. But right now, though, in our construction, it's kind of hard because you don't want Misa on the fourth line, and he's not going to play over Eklund. And you just signed Skinner, so he's probably not going to play over Skinner. Maybe Kurashev, but you got to also find a spot for Misa if you have him up on the power play too. So I'm not really sure.
Yeah, so that's when it gets hard, and that's what I'm saying. If you put Misa in the lineup, well, then we can go back to people really have to move around. Then Eklund moves back up. Kurashev, I put Eklund back up with Celebrini. Then Kurashev moves down. Gaudette moves down, and Graf might move out.
Yeah.
So you're looking at Graf or Misa. So if Misa's going into my lineup, I put Eklund back with Celebrini, and maybe Misa's playing with Smith and Kurashev, or I really like Misa to play with somebody a little more veteran than Will Smith.
I mean, how about Misa? This might be crazy, but if it's Misa for Graf, and let's say you send Graf down to the Barracuda just to get those reps, that you put Misa on our first line here with Celebrating into Foley, and then you put Kurashev down on your third.
Shift down with Wenberg and Skinner. that can work because you can't have, like we said, we can't have Misa playing on the right. I don't think that's fair to a kid to put him on his offside when he hasn't played that position. And you're putting if you can put him with Macklin Celebrini. The problem now is if I'm defending that group and I'm on the other side in the other locker room, I'm looking at that going, I've got Misa and Celebrini.
Yeah, that's fair.
Well, I'm loading up. And I'm going to put heavy veteran guys against that group. And then you bring in the argument for Ryan Reaves, because if you're putting Misa in the lineup, I think the argument for Ryan Reaves becomes much bigger. And that's why I'm not sure. This is now you've got too many forwards. And I think it's easy to put Graf down. If Misa plays, Graf goes down. I don't see any way that he can stay. Especially with the new acquisition of Kurashev. Kurashev moves down the lineup. I actually do. If you're going to put Misa in the lineup, I think to start day one, throw him out there, Celebrini. Let's see how you do, kid.
Well, let's give him a chance, right? Let's see how they do work out. And Celebrini, even though Celebrini's just 19, I treat Celebrini like a veteran. He's NHL strong. I'm not too worried about
stronger.
him.
Yeah, he's not 19. He is the way he plays. And Toffoli is the experienced 33-year-old. And it could be incredibly dynamic. And Kurashev can play on either side. He's done it in his career. So he can put him over the right side easily. And then you move Gaudette down. And I think everything works out. So the ability is there for Michael Misa. I believe that. And he is incredibly dynamic. But take it with a grain of salt. Like, where is the best path for Michael Misa to be the best player in 2 years?
Right.
Because I think that's the important discussion for San Jose Shark fans. Is it playing there and not finding the offensive success he had in the Ontario League and not being able to play the minutes that he played there? Or is he going to jump right on the ice and play with Celebrini and they're going to be amazing off the bat? I don't know. But his ability to go back to the Ontario League makes no sense to me. Like that, he crushed that league. Like he crushed it last year.
He did,
And
but
so,
you kind of don't have a lot of options, though. One thing I'm still trying to figure out is, can Michael Misa go to training camp without signing an ELC and sign an ATO so he can kind of compete and Sharks can see what they've got and still retain his NCAA eligibility?
NCAA eligibility, yeah.
But nobody knows the answer to that, honestly.
Because that's the question.
I've asked
that's the question, right?
Agents don't know. I asked the NHLPA. The NHLPA said, ask the NCAA. I put in an email to NCAA. I'm still waiting to hear from them. It's been
because
week.
That's the answer. Because that's to me. And again, this is a shifting landscape with where the best development now is for players with what the NCAA is doing. Can you see him with McKenna next year? Look at what.
Well,
McKenna,
though, I kind of assume though that they put a lot of their NOI money into McKenna. That it's
yeah,
hard
you're right. They can't afford it.
Honestly,
I know.
You put so much. Before McKenna, I would say that it would have made sense for Michael to go to Penn State and play with his brother. And I don't know, I'm not so familiar with college, so you can correct me if I'm wrong. But if I'm Michael Misa and I'm looking at it now, like there's only one player who would get at about this age that would get reps over Misa, development reps over Misa at a school or on a team, and that's Gavin McKenna. And so suddenly Penn State becomes less attractive because suddenly I'm not necessarily going to be forced or shoehorned in or whatever, written in pen on PP1 and for end of the game situations. And so if I'm Michael Misa and I'm the Sharks, if I'm looking at a situation, even Saginaw or any college situation, I want to go somewhere where, if it's not the NHL, I want to go somewhere where I'm indisputably the number one guy. I'm going to get that sort of weight so I can develop and be better and learn to be the number one guy or continue doing that at least. And with Penn State and McKenna there, I don't know if that exists anymore.
And it's funny though, because there's something to be said here, because going back to play in the Ontario League, he's going to put up numbers again. He's going to be the offensive upside. He's going to get all of those minutes that we're talking about him getting. The one thing about college that I like is their ability to prepare players Monday through Thursday. And in junior is more of an NHL pace. You learn to play games, 3-4 games a week, and it's different. You go to college and you practice a lot, and you practice 4 days and as much as you want, and your video and your nutrition and your weight room stuff. It's a more well-rounded development, and it's something that was unheard of a decade ago. If you're talking about the top draft picks playing in college, you would have said, no way is that happening.
Sure, of course,
but you see it. It's happening over and over again. So for Michael Misa, I know in his mind he's going to make this team. I think Grier is saying the right things, that the opportunity is there for him to make this team. It's just hard because how many 18 to 22-year-olds can you have in your lineup? How many guys are you trying to develop at the exact same time? It gets hard, and you become what the Edmonton Oilers did when they had 4 first overall picks.
Hey, so maybe Arizona State's save that.
I was thinking the same thing. I was thinking Arizona State
every day.
I honestly was thinking the exact same thing. It's playing the best conference in hockey, and it's right down the road from San Jose. They can keep an eye on them. And I tell you what, they got the Cullen Potter kid that can play on his wing. And I don't know. Interesting. But if Michael Misa makes this team, I don't know. I mean, on average, one or two kids make it out of their draft year to play.
Right.
And that's it. And is Michael Misa one of those guys?
I don't know. I'm not as sure about him, obviously, like I was with Macklin. And I do think that when I watched Misa, and granted just development camp, but I do think that the physicality or whatnot, which is normal for 18-year-old, is not quite there yet. So is he going to be quick enough and smart enough to survive in the NHL? He may be. He may well be. I'm not sure.
So we're good.
But,
Sheng, we're good with the forwards. We're good like this without Michael Misa.
We'll leave kind of Misa hanging. We'll see what happens. So let's move to the
But if he does make it, we both agreed if he does make it, he's got to play with Celebrini on the top. And then we move some people around,
I do like that idea. Let's always try it and see if it works out. Yeah, I agree with you that him with
Khrushchev goes to Gaudet's spot.
Yeah,
Gaudette moves down and Graf moves out.
Could work. Him with Wenberg could work too. Anyway, though, yeah, we'll
Okay,
just leave it
let's get to the
without
back end
pizza.
because
Let's get to
I think
pizza.
this will be easier.
Yeah, I think it will be.
Well, there's fewer players, so let's hope it's easier.
So
Let's hope.
I think this is going to be your top 6. I know that for now, I think we can put Desharnais as your. Oh, I'm not sending him down. I'm just moving him in, and let's call up Sam Dickinson, because I think Dickinson should start the season with the team to see where his game is at.
Yes.
Yeah, but so let's call him up, and we can work this out then. So let's.
I like it, and I tell you what, the only thing I disagree with right here, I think the pairs
this is the natural, or this is what Puck PD had, but I mean, I have myself.
I have
Orlov and Klingberg up there.
Same,
and I'm gonna move this.
And
around.
I put Letty on the left. I put Letty on left, but I've seen.
I think they want Mukamadulin up higher though, so
higher in the lineup.
Yeah. He was playing top 4 end of season last year. The last month or so, he was playing.
He was top 4, but that was without Orlov and Klingberg.
Oh, sure. So I'll let you. I
don't see him there.
thing.
Like Ferraro, Shakira over Ferraro. See, I think Ferraro's. I really like Ferraro's game.
Really? Okay, his game is very, very hotly contested. So
really,
okay, then.
See, I think with Shakira, it gives him the opportunity to play with. I had Shakir with Letty, and I did keep the pair together with Ferraro and Liljegren. And I think Liljegren to me is the one that needs the most improvement. I think that he showed at times his ability to skate and get himself out of some danger, but he looked young to me. He played young to me at times.
Right. Well, where I thought he's 25 already. Yeah. So.
I know, but I thought Ferraro played with that confidence, and I like Ferraro's game.
Yeah, I think with Ferraro, the debate, I mean, when you talk with scouts, it's just that, like, he's a great one-on-one defender, but, like, he doesn't bring much else. Obviously, the puck-moving aspect is not strong with him. Last year, they did him no favors they started him last season with Jan Ruda, so that's not a good pairing just because it's two guys who don't really move the puck well together. And also, too, over the last 4 years with the Sharks, because they've had nobody else, he was basically their number 1 defenseman or their number 1 shutdown defenseman. Really just rolls.
But he's not getting those minutes now, right? Like, he's not getting those minutes now. Like, Orlov's getting those minutes. Like, Orlov and Klingberg, to me, they're first over the boards at any situation. Now, do you split those two guys up? Do you split Klingberg and Orlov up to help pull get more experience with those other two? I don't think Liljegren can play that high in the lineup. Like, I didn't want to put him with Orlov because I didn't like him on that pair.
No, I don't either. Yeah.
And so if we talk about, I like Ferraro on the second pair. If you think you like the Shakir play on the right side with Ferraro? I don't love that.
He did last year. Yeah, I mean,
he played quite a bit with him, didn't he?
And they were basically functionally the Sharks' top pairing, Ferraro and Mukamadulin on the right side.
Yeah, so Mukamadulin moves there.
They weren't a disaster.
So if you have to have him higher in the lineup to play more minutes, you put him on the right side because he played with the right side when he played Ferraro during the season. And then you put Letty on the left and Liljegren down on the right. But I think that's your 6. I think we agree that that's the 6.
Those are your 6, unless Sam Dickinson does something that
surprising.
Yeah, and then the guy he probably pushes out might be a Liljegren then, and then you have to kind of flip flop. Somebody has to play their offside there because Liljegren is a righty. That's his big strength. I did want to ask you actually, because you cover the playoffs so closely for ESPN and on your Twitter as Peters Hockey, about Orlov, Klingberg, and Letty, especially Orlov and Klingberg, because both of them made deep playoff runs. What did you see from both of those guys?
Well, I think what Orlov's going to bring is Orlov's going to be the number 1 center on this team. And I think it's one of the things, and you saw it with Mikhail Sugarshev when he went to Utah, a guy that was the number 2 guy in Tampa for so long. He gets to Utah and he's the guy now.
Yeah.
And he played like the guy, 200-foot game, played both sides of the puck. He was the guy who was leading in the offense, leading on the power play, and leading defensively. I think that's Orlov. Orlov skates incredibly well. He can close those gaps in the neutral zone, defends very well, but he's got that offensive upside. He's going to come in off of the blue line. He's going to be very active off the blue line. He's going to join in the rush, and he's going to help this team get offense from the defense, especially with a young, fast offensive core up front. Orlov's going to love this. Like he is going to jump in the play and help that. Klingberg, I I like Klingberg. I really like Orlov. I think Klingberg on the right side is going to be. He's a guy defended well for Edmonton. He got a good stick. He's going to be difficult to get around wide away from Klingberg's stick. He moves the puck well and he skates well. He's not elite at either of those skills, but he's good and he's experienced. And at 32, he knows where he needs to be. He knows the right way to play. So he does have some shortcomings. If he can't keep up with the pace, he's going to give you a little bit bigger of a gap, but he's not going to let him beat you. And that's why I think the confidence now for San Jose, let's face it, San Jose's ability to defend and keep the puck out of the net last year, they struggled.
Yeah.
At their ability to defend. And they had really struggled to defend around their net. And from the hash marks end was a difficult area for them. And I think if you can put Orlov and Klingberg together, now you've taken that and you go, okay, we're going to play you two against the other team's best players every night. And I think Klingberg can take that. Orlov definitely can. Yeah. Because he's done it before and he's got the feet that can do that. But I think Klingberg's smart enough that these guys can take the brunt of the heavy minutes, which again, now you're giving these guys lower in the lineup that were eating some big minutes of top players a year ago. Now they don't have to have that load.
Right.
And that's where you look at Mukamudalin and Ferraro. Now they're not eating those minutes that they had to eat a year ago. Now maybe we can see more of an offensive upside out of those guys.
Right.
Because they're not getting the minutes they had on the top.
Right. Actually, I'm gonna move something around here. Then maybe have Mukamudalin and then play with Ferraro. Just he has to play on his right side, and then reverse Leddy and Lodgren.
Yes, that works for me. And I do like that, and I do think you're going to see. Again, I like this today, but once you get into camp. And who knows? Like Mukamudalin's he come off a tough injury, and who knows where his progress is. Maybe he's not ready, and I don't mean ready physically because he's going to be ready to play, but he's a guy that maybe he's going to be in the third period because he doesn't have his legs underneath him because he missed all that time in his rehabilitation. But also he's a guy that if he does get a step into his game, and with his reach and his size, man. Maybe he does get chance to play up higher in the lineup.
Yeah, he could be a top
by the end of the season.
On this team, possibly.
Yeah. So by the end of the season, maybe he's getting an opportunity to get out there with Orlov and see how that pair goes. So I think the biggest point on the back end, I think it just shows, and the most important thing to take away from this discussion is it's better than the top six were a year ago.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah,
and now they can defend better. And hopefully it's one of those things that they can check one of the boxes that their goals against can start to see some improvements. And we're not going to hang that all on the goalie, that they didn't defend well. It's a team that did not defend well. And I think now you're looking at, okay, now we've got some guys that even on the front lines are playing a little bit deeper in the lineup, and they're going to have to defend more. And now we've got better defensemen. So hopefully that's one of the things that this team can get improve on from last season.
Yeah, a couple of things stand out. Orlov may not be a true number one defenseman on a playoff team, but I think he is a better, and I put this in air quotes, better number one defenseman than Jake Wallman last year, than Mario Ferraro through a lot of times with the Sharks the last couple of years. So there's an improvement there. And then Mike Grier also emphasized that he wanted more guys that could move the puck, get the puck out of the zone, and get it to the forwards' hands. And so there isn't there is a functional Jan Rutta on his team in Desharnais, but there's not as many of these guys anymore. So you have Orlov who can move a puck. You have Klingberg who can move a puck. You have Mukamudalin. You have Leddy. You have Lodgren. So guys who are proven ability to kind of move the puck at this level. One more thing I did want to ask you about Klingberg in particular, though, is how did he look, I guess, because he's a guy that obviously has dealt with significant injuries for the last 3-4 years, and people talked about how he, especially in this playoff run, he was looking better and better and kind of more reminiscent of John Klingberg in his prime. And so how close is he to that? Obviously, he's not going to be that John Klingberg from 26 when he was 26. He was a top six Norris guy, a 50, 60-point offensive defenseman, the best Swedish offensive defenseman this side of Erik Karlsson back in the day. But how close is he, you think, if he hits, basically? And
I think what's important, a couple of things. One, the injuries have been a huge problem. I mean, you look at what he's played over the last 3 seasons. He's really struggled to stay healthy and stay in the lineup. So that's one. He's got to stay in the lineup. But when he has been able to do that, and I think you saw that in the playoffs with Edmonton, his ability to be a key player on the back end, and he plays 20 games in the playoffs,
Yeah,
and he was an effective player. So I think what's going to happen though, Edmonton is just one of their 6. In San Jose, he's going to be asked to be a bigger player, and he's going to be
sure.
asked to be a guy that takes on a bigger role than he did in Edmonton. And
Yeah.
I think that's good for John Klingberg. I think you are going to see the return to what we saw from him early in
Yeah.
Dallas, and his ability to move the puck and his ability to be the guy, because he's the guy again.
Yeah.
As long as he can stay healthy, I think the confidence and his ability to play with a player like Orlov, I do think when you are the guy or have been the guy and you're not the guy anymore, it's hard to have that inner presence and that motivation and then that swagger. But if you put him in the San Jose lineup and you tell him you're the guy, like you're going to get those minutes. I do think if he can stay healthy, I do think he can return to that top 2 defensive mentality, and I think he can move the puck well enough. And I think he's going to have a really good year in San Jose if he can stay healthy.
Okay. So you like the gamble by the Sharks there on him in free agency. So I was just wondering, because you watched the Edmonton so closely, and so want to see what you thought.
Yeah, I like him. I like him, and that's a team. It's funny when you talk about the Edmonton Oilers, you always think of a team that is offensively, and they're going to blow teams away as how well they play offensively. But that team defended incredibly well, and that's why they were in the Stanley Cup Finals, because they defended so well in their group of 6. They got better when Ekholm came into the lineup, but that's a team that defended very well from their net on out. Well, not the net. I apologize. Goaltending.
Yeah.
But their defensemen were a solid 6, and Klingberg was a big part of that in his ability to get the puck up the ice and out of danger and not allow Florida at times to hem them in. Now, Florida's better. Florida's the best team in hockey, and I still I don't know if you don't pick them to win again next year. I'm not sure who you're picking, Sheng, but they look pretty good for next year too.
Wanted to also ask you if you've seen enough of Sam Dickinson to put sort of a prediction to if he can stick on this lineup all season, or do you think that he is if he can't be here, he can't be in the AHL? Unfortunately, I mean, even though he dominated London last year, that just might be the best place for him.
It's tough, and it's tough at 19. When you're coming into the National Hockey League, the easiest, and no position's easy, but as a forward, you jump over the boards and you just play your game. You play offensively. You just skate a little bit harder, and things happen. Playing defense in the National Hockey League is incredibly hard. And you're talking about rush reads and defensive zone reads, and now you're playing against men in front of the blue paint that you've got to get out of the way, that you just haven't had to do. You're pushing 17-year-olds last season, and now you're dealing with 35-year-old men. It's hard, and it's a hard step to make right away. I'm not saying he can't. I mean, you're looking at a guy that's big enough and strong enough, and his numbers are there offensively, and he does all of the little things right. I just don't know if it's going to be his year, because if he, like, to your point, if he's not playing in the National Hockey League, I can't send him to the American League, which is probably what's best for him. And that's what's best for him. Yeah, I'd like to see that in the new CBA is going to have one player that you're allowed to do that. And I think it's huge.
2026, 27, unfortunately, for Sam.
Yeah, and it's a defenseman, because you put him down in the American League again. Now he's playing with men.
Yeah, he's going to play 20 minutes a night. He's going to get power play time.
And you're playing a pace that's not much faster than you're playing a junior, but it's not the NHL. So you still have time to make decisions, and you can be that big physical presence, and you can make some mistakes down there, but you can't make those mistakes in the NHL. I think he's going to have a really hard time breaking into the lineup full time this year. Now, having said that, we've seen it happen in San Jose before. And you saw with Macklin Celebrini. You see how successful he was a year ago. Can Sam Dickinson do that at 6'3"?
Well, going back to the Sharks of the past too, I've used this example before. Everyone has heard it, but Marc-Edouard Vlasic came in as a 19-year-old. He was terrific. He was all rookie team, ushered in a great career with the Sharks. But then on the other hand, though, they rushed Mirko Mueller. And Mirko Mueller was, I think, 19 too. And Mirko Mueller should still be playing in the NHL, but he's not. And Mirko Mueller had the physical package, still does, but he's not in NHL now. And so those are kind of the angel and devil. So it worked, and the cautionary tale.
Yeah, because you worry, like, and right now, if you're looking at that third pair on the left side, you're looking at Nick. For me, I've got Nick Leddy there. You're looking at a guy that he's done everything and been everywhere in the National Hockey League. He can handle that role. He can help mentor some of the younger players. He knows how to get through as an NHL pro. He's a guy I want in my locker room and in the lineup on a night in, night out basis. I'm not saying Dickinson can't play there, but right now, if I have to play game one right now and I have to play it, I want Nick Leddy in the lineup. Now, Dickinson's going to be the guy in the future. He's going to be the guy when this team is ready to win and you look up and down the lineup. Sam Dickinson's going to be a huge part of the success that this team is going to have. But it's not going to be this season, and meaning the success of the team, not the success of the player. He can definitely play. Like he's going to be a player in the National Hockey League, but the San Jose Sharks aren't going to be in the playoffs next year. They're not, and it's are they pushing for playoffs? I don't know.
Well, we'll talk about that in a second. Let's finish up our positions.
With Sam, he's going to have to really impress in training camp. And physically, he's going to have to impress. I think the skating will be there. The offense will be there. Yeah. Can he physically box guys out? Can he win those battles in the corner?
Yeah,
and I think
he's
that's
big, but it doesn't mean he could do those things at NHL level for sure. Those little things for a defenseman. Absolutely. Yep. So I want to quickly mention a couple guys who did not make our defensive lineup. For one person, I think it spells waivers. So you have a Luca Cagnoni who had an incredible season in AHL last year, and he's still waiver exempt. So I think it's good for him to go back to the Barracuda and continue to dominate there. And Cagnoni does have still a lot to work on defensively, and so he can do that with another year with the Barracuda. But Jack Thompson, he's a right-hander, which gives him some value out there. But he's a guy, if everything kind of shapes out, but we don't know, of course, because reminder last year, if we did this exercise over the summer, we would have had Mukama Doolin, we would have had maybe Askarov in the Sharks opening night lineup. But both of those guys got hurt during training camp. And so that's just what happens. And so if there's injuries, then maybe there's still a role on the Sharks for Jack Thompson, or maybe that helps Sam Dickinson get into the lineup from the get-go because there's injuries. So we'll see on that. But at the moment, though, looks like we're kind of projecting Thompson is not waiver exempt, so he'll have to go through waivers. Finally, I want to talk about the goalies, and there's not too much to discuss here because I think it's pretty clear-cut what the Sharks are setting up. They're setting up Yaroslav Askarov to be their go-to guy for the next, hopefully, the next decade or so.
Yeah, you hope so. And again, here's I don't think it's a concern. I think they've got a good plan. And you've got a guy that you want to hand the reins to, but you've got a guy in Nedeljkovic who I think understands the role, and he understands what the future is here in San Jose. And I don't know if you've had that clear picture before. Nedeljkovic gets it. He understands what he's going to get the opportunity to do. Now, as I said before, there are going to be times when he's given the ball to run with. And I think you're going to see him play several games in a row at times because Askarov's still learning his game and he's still finding his way in the National Hockey League. He's still improving. Like you go back and look at, there were times last year, there's some of those goals that you go, gosh, they can't happen in the National Hockey League. It's going to take him some time to develop into the player you want him to be. And you can't make him the de facto number one right now because when you have those nights and you're struggling and you got to go out again and do it again and do it again and do it again, you can ruin a guy.
Yeah, and absolutely. I agree.
And I think Nedeljkovic is the right mindset and the right player at the right time. I do think he's a guy that is easygoing guy that can, if he has to back up several games in a row, I think he's got the head that can do that. And if you throw him in the third period and he can jump in and relieve Askarov, but I also think if you need him to, he can start a couple of games in a row. So I think this is a good, comfortable place for Askarov. He doesn't have a guy that's, I don't want to say fighting for the net because everybody wants to play, and Nedeljkovic wants to play those minutes, but it's not a guy that, hey, I'm the number one guy and you just wait.
Right.
He understands.
That's what they had with Georgiev last year, and that's why
100%.
Part of the reason why Askarov wasn't up, I think, because it just wasn't going to be a good fit that way.
100%. And that's exactly the mix that you had. Like with Georgiev he's the number one. I'm a number one guy in the NHL. And Nedeljkovic, I think, understands the role here on this team. And I think that's going to be what's the best for development for Askarov. And he's going to get those minutes. Now, who starts game one? I don't know. Like, I think you'll have to go into training camp and see how guys are going. Right. I'd lean on Askarov in game one, but I don't know. It's too far.
Hard to say, but we feel pretty comfortable with them as their pairing. So anyway, Before I ask you sort of overall kind of global thoughts on this team, do you have any quick thoughts about special teams with all these elements that the Sharks have added now?
Yeah, it's a concern. And I'll tell you why. I think they are better and more skilled up front than they were a year ago. And the
Right.
ability to have really good power play players, I think they're there in this lineup. But when you go start doing research on the better power plays in the National Hockey League, one of the consistent things is you're going to see players that have played together year after year after year. And I'm saying the best power plays in the league
Sure.
when we're talking Tampa Bay and the teams that are just
Edmonton.
dominant. Yeah, Edmonton. You look at a core that's been together 8+ years. So I think you're going to see with San Jose, the skill level is there, but it is going to take time. And especially if a player like Michael Misa jumps into this lineup, that it's going to take guys to get comfortable in their roles and their new spots and where they're playing in that power play.
Sure. Sure.
So I think overall the power play is going to be better skill wise, but I think it's going to take him 10, 12, 15 games to go, okay, now we're starting to get it. We're starting to understand how we play together. So they may actually take a step backwards to start. Penalty killing, I think when you look at this lineup, I think they're going to be a much better penalty killing team than they were a year ago. And again, it starts with they've got better defending.
Right.
They're
Right.
27th
Right.
in penalty killing a year ago. They got better defense. I think you've got, when you put some of these players lower in the lineup that we've talked about, they've got some good penalty killers in this lineup that can still skate and move very well. So I think their penalty kill will be better. It's not going to be top 10, but it's not going to be bottom third. I mean, they're
Right.
27th. So I do think they're going to improve in both those areas this year.
Okay. Okay. And then wanted a quick note too. Ryan Warsofsky, he instituted a new neutral zone after the Four Nations, and it actually helped the Sharks quite a bit because basically from when they traded Mackenzie Blackwood in mid-December to before the Four Nations, that's basically 2 months. I think the Sharks won like 4 or 5 games or something. They were awful.
Yeah.
And part of it was, they didn't have Blackwood anymore to help erase their mistakes, but also too that they were exposing Georgiev, Askarov when he was there, Vanacek, to really not an easy situation in terms of goaltending. And after they instituted a new neutral zone, the chances and shots against went down, even if maybe the Sharks weren't as dangerous offensively. But it made it a more competitive environment for Georgiev, for Macklin Celebrini out there, and company, Will Smith and company. So I don't know if you had any thought about that, if you had a chance to look at that much.
One of the things, and I think it's important that teams have the ability to play different type of systems at different times when it suits their opponent
Mhm.
or when it suits their players and who's on their roster. And I'll give you an example. The Florida Panthers last year in the playoffs, leading up to the Edmonton Oilers, their neutral zone, they were much more aggressive, tighter gaps, and they were really forcing things with their defensemen attacking at the red line. Like they were incredibly aggressive from the red line to the offensive blue line. That's where Florida would jump their players. But when they played Edmonton, we know Edmonton plays an unbelievably quick style. They get through the neutral zone incredibly fast. They
Sure.
stretch the zone, meaning they're dumping the puck from their defensive zone to the offensive zone and trying to make 20, 30-foot plays. Well, Florida did. Florida changed the way they played, and they started to back off the blue line. They started to back off and defend skating backwards versus skating forwards. And that was a real subtle adjustment, but it really helped them stay in front of the best skilled players, the Edmonton Oilers. And that's what San Jose did. The San Jose was trying to play incredibly quick through the blue lines. They wanted to attack the puck. They wanted their defensemen stand up on the puck. They wanted to take those plays away prior to getting to their defensive blue line. Well, when you do that, especially with young players that are back checking and you got young forwards coming back, you can oftentimes get in a situation where you're giving up those 2-on-1s or 3-on-2s, and you're giving up those odd man rushes because the defense are super aggressive. Yes, you can stop those plays if you back up more. Boston Bruins back up. Vegas backs up. Yes, you can stop that. But I think Warsofsky's showing he can do it either way. I'm curious to see how they do this now with a defense that I think is more mobile with adding Orlov and Klingberg and can move the puck better and more experienced back there with those two guys. Can they now still continue to stand up at the blue line and make those chances at the offensive blue line, knowing that they might be able to turn the puck over and throw the puck up the ice to Kurashev or Celebrini? I'm curious. This is a team that right now, this is a quick group. Like this is a fast group up front and on the back end. I think you have to have better reads on the back end than they had last year. But you guys, everybody's got another year of experience now
Yeah.
and playing with each other with you, which will help. But it's nice to know Warsofsky understands that if they have to go back to that defending mentality, I don't want to play that way if I'm the Sharks next year. No, let's go. Let's go.
Okay.
I'm going to show you we're faster than everybody. We're younger than everybody. We got more speed than everybody. Let's go. Let's go.
Okay.
That's how I'm going to start off because you're looking at teams. The fastest teams are going to be the teams that win. I think, and so that's how you want this team to play in the future. That's what you want this team to be made like. I don't know if I want to be backing up and defending all the time.
Okay, that makes sense. So yeah, that they would probably
You can
start,
change though.
right?
Yeah.
Right.
And if you find yourself, 2-8 and you're getting just pummeled and Nathan McKinnon's going down Main Street every rush, well, yeah, then you make adjustments.
Right.
But for now, I think part of it's about getting your forwards understanding how to back check and where to back check through the middle of the ice. And that's just repetitions and younger players, especially players like Celebrini, people don't like to hear it, but they want the puck. They want to play offensive side. And you're not always thinking where do I go defensively, and that comes with some maturity. And I do think I'm curious to see. And you've got me just enveloped into the San Jose Sharks right now. And I just can't wait to see how they play because there are some exciting pieces to this team right now. There really are, and there's things to be hopeful for San Jose Sharks fans. They're here, like there's some skill here and some very good hockey players.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so it makes sense then because Warsofsky started the way he did last year tactically because that's the way he wants to play, even if the personnel, even to begin last year, wasn't maybe quite suitable for it. A rebuilding team, that's kind of what happens. And so it makes sense so that he's going to try it again in training camp the way he wants to play and see if they can survive and thrive doing that. But now he has the experience from last year that, okay, if we got to change it up, we have a more veteran group and our young guys too are practiced in sort of, hey, we got to hang back a little bit more. So yeah, it'll be kind of interesting to see from day one. But I want to get to, I guess, the big question then. So do you think that this is a better Sharks team than not the end of last year? The end of last year was kind of a disaster area of a team, but the beginning of last year, when we talk about Mackenzie Blackwood is still there, Wallman and Cece, Mikhail Granlund. So what do you think comparing those two groups?
I do because I like those guys. All the guys you mentioned that left are really good hockey players, and they went on to have important roles in the playoffs with the teams that they played for. But I think what the most important thing with the San Jose Sharks now is they're younger players that you needed to be better are another year older and a year more experienced. Will Smith and Celebrini are the guys that need to be better. William Eklund needs to be better. So I think you're getting better just because these guys are maturing into better players. Celebrini right now is like he's so far ahead of where the expectations where this player was. And don't tell Chicago Blackhawk fans, but if you have to have Bedard or Celebrini right now, I'm taking Celebrini.
I think if you ask 32 GMs, you got to start a franchise with one player, and you got to start a franchise. It's not like a Stanley Cup, like you're adding a player to win the cup. You got to start a franchise. I think 32 GMs are picking Celebrini over anybody else in the league right now. Over Matthew Schaefer, over Connor Bedard, over anybody.
I agree. And I think that's what makes San Jose better. Now, here's where the concern comes in. And you don't, they are better. And I think they're better defensively. The goaltending is going to be interesting because Mackenzie Blackwood, I mean, you had good goaltending last year when he was at his best. I think Askarov's best days are ahead of him. I don't think they're there this year. So I think there's going to be some growing pains in the net. I think they'll defend better. I think they're going to score more goals. They were at the bottom of goals for per game. I think that will get better. But it's going to be baby steps. This isn't going to be giant leaps this year. This isn't a playoff team yet. And again, if you talk to their management, they're not going to say they're a playoff team yet, and they understand the way these rebuilds work. And you look at teams like Anaheim and Utah are perfect examples that I think are 2 years ahead of where San Jose is. They're teams that are going to threaten the playoffs this year. I think Anaheim and Utah both are going to be closer to the playoffs than where the San Jose Sharks are. Now, can the Sharks overcome and be better in areas? Absolutely, they can. I don't anticipate they're going to find their way too far out of the cellar again this year, though. But are there teams they're better than? Yeah, I think they're going to compete. Chicago, Nashville, Seattle in the West. I think they're better than those teams, but this isn't a team
You think the
that
Sharks
still
are
has to wait
better
a couple
than
years.
Seattle and Chicago and Nashville?
Yeah, I'm not a fan of what
Oh,
some
well,
of the moves they've done.
that's pretty bold.
Well, the Nashville one's interesting. Their better
Yeah,
players have to be better. Like on
right,
paper, that was a team I had in the playoffs last year, and they were
right.
rotten. I don't like Seattle, but
Okay.
again,
You don't like
don't tell
the
them I said that. And Chicago's not ready. Chicago's not ready. Chicago's not ready either, and
I
it's
mean,
going to
it'll
be interesting to
be
see.
immense progress for
Chicago's
the Sharks and not be the worst team in the league, at least. And
yes, I think honestly, that's the realistic goal for the San Jose Sharks. They can't be the worst team in the league this year.
and
That's what
you think
that's.
that they will reach that goal
I
this
think
year? This
they
is your
correct.
prediction.
I'm
Okay.
saying they're coming out of the cellar.
Okay. All right.
And you can have me
Coming out
on,
party.
have me on during the season. You have me on during the season to see how I'm doing. And because I tell you this, I've made a lot of mistakes, but I've always stand up to them. And
Sure,
I
sure,
I
sure.
think I think this team can be really exciting, and
Okay.
I think they can make steps. Goaltending is going to be a huge part of that, and I think as with any team, it's important. But this team is going to surprise some people offensively this year. I think
I
their
yeah.
offensive upside is much higher than it was a year ago.
I will say that while I'm not sure if I'm bold enough to predict them out of last place, that this team definitely has more ceiling than recent Sharks teams. If you look at the fact that they're young talent, they're elite young talents, Macklin Celebrini,
Yeah,
Askarov. We're not just talking about good prospects. We're talking about
right.
the best prospects in the NHL with proven NHL ability. And then the second part is that they've added all these kind of veterans who maybe are past their prime a bit, like Orlov and Klingberg and Letty. But the point is, though, that those guys were impact players.
Mhm.
And so it's not like, because in years past with the Sharks, they're bringing on a lot of reclamation projects like Philip Zadina. Not to pick on him, but where you're trying to push a guy forward who's never done it. And it's better to have a guy that has done it and just has to kind of find the fountain of youth a little bit. That's more likely to happen than kind of the Zadina like gambles. Like, well, hopefully it works out. And so
And the
they
other thing
have.
too, though,
So it's a better group, yeah, in that
but the
sense.
other thing is too, they can look at their management and go, they're trying. They're trying to
Mhm.
do things,
Sure.
and he's bringing in people that are legitimate NHL players,
Yeah. Yeah.
and you look around the room now and go, oh, God, yeah, this guy can play. This guy
Mhm.
can play, and belief goes a long way. And if you start to look at it and go, okay, we have some NHL players now, and you've got the skill like you have up front, and I know Celebrini's ceiling is like, I he's an amazing hockey player.
Yes. Yeah.
And I think you're going to see him take another step again this year. But again, when you believe that you can win, and you get some veteran players in the locker room that have been where you want to be, and they've been in the playoffs, they've been deep in the playoffs. You go, yeah, okay, we're better. And if you believe you're better, you're better.
Yeah.
So I
Absolutely.
do think there's a little bit of belief and think that you've got some trust in what management's trying to do.
Yep, yep, yep. So anyway, Steve, I really appreciate your time. You've given so much of it, and I'm excited to show. I'm going to show you guys, if you don't mind, Steve, some of the texts you're sending
Yes.
me with the pictures of your work, just to kind of tease all this. I think
Yeah.
that's really really cool. Actually, you know what? No, actually, no. I don't. I want to let you go. I don't want to put the picture up right now, but I'll
Well,
do
I
it
got
later.
there's my board. That's my shark board, and I used
Oh,
teal
okay.
so I moved everybody
Oh,
around
there
in
you go.
position. I put their age, their weight, their height, and I tell you, you have to watch a lot of video to see, gosh, and that's why the Gaudette one is, it may be surprising, but there's something I saw in him today that I really like this kid.
I
So
like
he's
that.
the one
I like that.
I'm curious to see how he fits into what the Sharks are trying to do. I just get this feeling that again, not playoffs,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
there's some vibe here with these guys now. There's guys that can add to the pace of this team, and so it's going to be fun. And I think Sheng, you're going to have a little more fun this year than you did a year
Oh,
ago.
I
I
hope
hope.
so. I hope so. Boy, yeah, especially 2 years ago. That's the year that is not spoken of. So the year that shall not be named. So
We've had those years in Arizona. Trust
right,
me,
right.
lots and lots of them.
So I just want to close off with one last thing with you, just because I mentioned this at the top that it was so cool that you were the video coach of Team North America. And if you guys don't remember that, those are I think it was under 23 players, right? So you
Yep.
had on a team, Connor McDavid, Nathan McKinnon, all under 23, just amazing. And what I wanted to ask you from that experience is, what do you think a guy like Macklin Celebrini or Will Smith, just someone in that age, if they had a Team North America next year for the Olympics, they won't, but if they had that, then obviously Macklin and Will would be top considerations there, especially Macklin. But what do you think that experience being around those guys, Connor, etc., at such a young age, that Macklin Celebrini or Will Smith or William Macklin or somebody like that could kind of learn from or aspire to? Just what did you see from those
Yeah,
those guys back in those
it's
days?
interesting because I think it's unfortunate that doesn't happen more,
Mhm.
and that you saw the four nations face off, and I know everybody wants to play for their country. I get
Right.
it, but what happens is you leave out, and that's why they built that team in 2016 is because one, they needed another team, and two, you didn't want to keep some of the best young players in the game out of this big stage that probably wouldn't have made the. Austin Matthews hadn't played a game in the NHL yet. He's just coming over from the Swiss league. He's 18. It was his
Oh, I
draft
forgot
year.
that. Yeah.
So he hadn't played an NHL game yet. I mean, you're putting him on honestly, first practice, he was the extra forward.
Mhm.
Austin Matthews, by the time we were playing, was on a line with Connor McDavid. And that's how I think it was important for that group and we talk about that swagger when
Mhm.
you had all of these kids and you look at the net. John Gibson, Connor Hellebuck, and Matt Murray were the three goalies, three phenomenal goalies, wouldn't have played for their country. And you would have kept them out of that tournament. And there's so many players. McDavid would have played for Canada, but on that team, honestly, it might have been just McDavid. Like McKinnon probably wouldn't have played for Team Canada. So you didn't give those guys the opportunity. And like you said, the bonding that team had because they were all just kids. And you, what an experience they had. And the other thing they had back then too is they had that Young Guns game and the All-Star game where you saw those young players had an opportunity to compete with each other and have that young energy of the best players in the league. Hey, we're going to build something special here where you could get a Celebrini and Bedard playing together. And I
Mhm.
do think that the league really wants to push their young stars in this game. And I wish they had a forum to do that in.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, they don't. When it's not, whether it's the Four Nations face-offs, the Olympics, or in the All-Star game, I wish there was a better vehicle to really promote the Lane Hudson and Macklin Celebrini amongst their peer group. And I
Right.
wish that
Right.
was something that
Right.
the league could figure out.
Well, it could have just been simple as make it the Five Nations, include Czechia like you should have
Exactly.
from the beginning, and add a Team North
There you
America as
go.
team number 6.
I get it. Again, you look at if you put that team together right now, tomorrow, it's just Jack Eichel, Dylan Larkin, JT Miller. Like we're captains on almost every team in the league. Sean Couturier was there as a captain. Like this was elite hockey. And I challenge anybody who's a hockey fan right now. It's summer. They've got time. Google, go on YouTube and put in Team North America versus Team Sweden from the World Cup 2016 and just watch the first 10 minutes of the game. That's it. And if you don't say that's some of the best hockey you've ever seen, Oliver Ekman-Larsson was a defenseman for Team Sweden. I talked to him after the game. He said, I have never seen hockey played like that.
Wow.
There were 3 breakaways, a penalty shot, and
Yeah.
2 goals in the
Yeah.
first 10 minutes. So go watch it. You're a hockey fan.
Well, Steve, I really appreciate all your time. I had so much fun with you. So, anyway, guys, Steve Peters, check out his work on Twitter, S Peters Hockey, and look for him to be helping out with ESPN. A lot of stuff on his Twitter too. He'll keep pumping out a lot of video there, I assume, right?
Yeah, and check out, I got a new YouTube channel too. It's
Oh,
called
you
Inside the
okay?
Coaches Room.
Okay.
Inside the Coaches Room, I do some interviews there, break down, teach the game a little bit. So check it out on YouTube, Inside the
All right.
Coaches Room.
All right, man. Well, Steve, enjoy the rest of your summer. I'll have to have you back on middle of the season trade deadline heat check. Mike Grier is hoping that the Sharks kind of stay on the fringes of the playoff race. He's not saying they're a playoff team, but like within we don't have to fire sale everybody. I don't know. That seems like a very bold kind of hope, but we'll see though. And you are more optimistic on the Sharks, so that's I'm sure will be exciting for the fans to hear. So anyway, thank you so much for your time, man.
Yeah, I can't wait to have me on again, Sheng, and follow this Shark team and see how they do this season.
All right, man. Thanks.